Chapter 61. Madame Lu's nails almost dug into her flesh. The third branch didn't have much money, so she had to live a frugal life. Luo Rongbing was like most men who spent money recklessly. Now, he was going to spend his money recklessly on a woman. Good, very good. And this woman really couldn't be underestimated. The first time they fought, she was defeated. Madame Lu had never been defeated like this in her life. She must not fall into her hands. Luo Rongbing was so ruthless, so Madame Lu didn't want to lower herself. She stopped smiling and said with a cold face, "Whatever you say, it's naturally what it is. But, Huan Nyong? It's better to change this name. No matter what character it is, it will clash with the third daughter's name. If mother knows, she will not be happy. This concubine will take my leave." Luo Rongbing's face changed. He dismissed the servants and took the woman's hand. "In the future, this prince will call you Huan Nyong, okay?" In fact, it had nothing to do with Jing Wan, but Madame Lu was right. Madame Luo would care. Even if he was unhappy, he had to change it. "It's just a name. You can call me whatever you want." Huan Nyong leaned on his shoulder. "To be able to receive your sincerity, this concubine would be willing to die immediately." "Don't talk nonsense. We, and our children, have a long life in the future. This prince has already told you that this relationship with Madame Lu is just a matter of face. If she does anything to you, you don't have to tolerate her. She is a person who cares about her face. She won't reveal it herself. So, you don't have to look at her face and live carefully. Madame is the wife, and this concubine is the concubine. Even if Madame does something, it's natural. It's not good to make a scene. As the saying goes, paper can't wrap fire. If someone knows, it will be bad for your reputation. This concubine doesn't want to see. Moreover, it's this concubine and Madame who stole you. It's understandable that Madame is unhappy. So, this concubine won't have a conflict with Madame. But, you won't let yourself suffer. So, you can rest assured. You, don't talk about snatching. I'm yours." Huan Nyong's gentleness and thoughtfulness made Luo Rongbing feel very comfortable. Lady Huan smiled tenderly and sweetly called out, "Master. By the way, Master, Madame mentioned third young lady just now. Second brother's legitimate daughter. The old Madame likes her very much. Don't get close to her. She is influenced by the old Madame and doesn't like concubines. If you make her unhappy, even I can't protect you." Luo Rongbing said. Luo Rongbing was not afraid of Jing Wan. In his opinion, she was a girl who would get married sooner or later. Even if she suppressed his daughter, he didn't think much of it. The relationship between the third branch and the second branch had never been good. No matter whether she married well or not, it had little to do with him. In this regard, Luo Rongbing was very clear. As for his legitimate daughter, she was always at loggerheads with her. He had said it once or twice, but later, he was too lazy to say it again. However, his concubine was different. If something happened, the old Madame could kill her with a word. So, the best choice was to stay far away from her. Lady Huan's eyes flashed in a place that Luo Rongbing couldn't see. This concubine knows. Let's not talk about how angry Mrs. Lu was when she went back. Anyway, the Luo family basically knew that Luo Rongbing brought someone back and was pregnant. After all, there were many people present. If the third branch could put spies in other people's courtyards, naturally, there were spies in their courtyard. Gong Mama was very clear about these twists and turns. She often listened to 30% of it. Even if she didn't eavesdrop in person, she could think about 70% of it. In this way, Jing Wan could know more details than others. Jing Wan lay on the soft couch and let the maidservant massage her. Although the technique was not as good as Gong Mama's, it was not bad. Gong Mama's foot was injured, but she still wandered around her during the day. Although she was sure that it was much better, Jing Wan still didn't want her to continue to be tired. She didn't want to go back to rest, so she let her sit aside and watch. Hearing Gong Mama's soft voice, Jing Wan, who was originally sleepy, woke up a little. She said suspiciously, "Third aunt bullied our second branch like this." I was still thinking about how to repay her. I didn't expect that someone would give me a pillow just as I was about to doze off. It's really timely, and it's the most unlikely person. I think it's a coincidence. That woman was probably raised by third master outside for a long time. She just found out that she was pregnant today, so she took this opportunity to ask third master to bring her back. After all, she was born of a concubine, and her reputation was even worse. According to how much third master cares about that woman, it's not difficult to achieve the purpose of entering the Luo family. Gong Mama said, "Well, it's probably really a coincidence. If it was done by someone, they would have schemed against third uncle and the third branch long ago. Third uncle is not worthy of being schemed against by outsiders. In our own family, third uncle can't threaten eldest uncle, so eldest uncle naturally won't waste such effort. And my father really doesn't put third uncle in his eyes. For the time being, let's wait and see. If the third branch is lively enough, then we'll just watch. If it's not lively enough, then we can add firewood," Jingwan said, and her voice gradually lowered, as if she was about to fall asleep. Gong Mama's expression was unfathomable. Yes, Luo Rongping is not worthy of being schemed against by outsiders, but that person can't bear to see you being bullied. If someone bullies you, you don't need to do anything. He will help you get back 100 times or 1,000 times. Knowing that you don't get along well with the third branch, he has already started to scheme before you came to the capital. It's really not a coincidence that Luo Rongping didn't bring that woman back at any other time, but today. After all, he can't make Madame Lu so angry at any other time. Li Hongyuan casually flipped through the things he got from his so-called third brother and fourth brother. If these things were thrown out, it would definitely be enough to make them suffer. However, it was far from enough to directly overthrow them. However, no matter how useful these things were, Li Hongyuan was not interested. After flipping through them, he threw them aside. Eunuch Mu poured him a cup of tea and then stood aside with his head lowered like a wooden stake. Wan Wan and Chen Jingmin's engagement is basically set? Li Hongyuan, who seemed to be thinking and lost in thought for a moment, asked. His tone was indifferent and unusually calm, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. However, in Eunuch Mu's view, this was the most abnormal. Miss Luo was going to be engaged to someone else. His master should be gloomy and thinking of ways to kill Chen Zhengmin. The calmer he was, the more terrifying it was. Eunuch Mu couldn't help but reach out to wipe the sweat on his forehead. His master knew everything about Miss Luo's big matter. Even so, Eunuch Mu didn't dare to disagree. But would his answer make his master immediately furious and directly wring his head off? "Master, it should be like this. Sun Yilin sent away Zi to Wan Wan?" Li Hongyuan continued to ask. "Master, yes." Eunuch Mu's back began to sweat. Who would save him? Sun Yilin's status is barely enough. Chen Jingmin's is really too low. For this imperial examination, let them know. As long as his standard is passable, he will at least be the third. "Yes." "Master, what do you want to do? Have you given up on Miss Luo? Otherwise, why did you not trample on the man who was about to become her fiancé and even put in so much effort to help him? Sometimes, the three people in the first place were personally appointed by the emperor. It was really difficult to influence the emperor's decision. It would be best if Chen Zhengmin happened to be favored by the emperor. But now that you have said something, we can't just wait. For insurance, we have to find a way to let Chen Zhengmin make his presence known in front of the emperor in advance." It was easy to say but too difficult to do. It was true that a word from the master was enough to make the subordinates run out of legs. Since Sun Yilin has already entered the imperial court as an official, how can he still have time to go to the flower market and neglect his proper duties? Aren't you the one who neglects his proper duties the most, master? If you want to find trouble for others but don't have time to contact Miss Luo, just say so. If Chen Zhengmin is not at the Chen residence, then he is at the Luo residence. Is he preparing to become a bookworm? Young Master Chen has been in the capital for a few months, but the number of times he has been to the Luo residence can be counted on one hand. Although he doesn't participate in literary gatherings or social gatherings every few days, he also doesn't blindly read books. Today is the first time he has seen Miss Luo in the Luo residence. Digression: https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6652942. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.beacon.com. Beacon.com mobile version reading website. Beacon.com. Chapter 62. Sure enough, how could his master not care about Miss Luo? Although he didn't know why he only separated those young masters from Miss Luo instead of killing her directly, he must have other plans. Eunuch Mu never thought that his master was suddenly soft-hearted and didn't involve the innocent. Those who dared to covet Miss Luo deserved to die, and those who got involved with Miss Luo were also unforgivable. Even if they didn't die, they would definitely be skinned alive. I don't want the third branch of the Luo family to be too harmonious, and I don't want the Luo family's backyard to be in chaos. Master, don't worry. Even if there is a bad reputation, it will only be the third branch of the Luo family and won't involve others. And it won't disturb the future princess at all. Luo Romping's ambition can still be allowed to grow a little more. With his relationship with this prince's big brother, I can help to pull some strings for him. His ability was so weak and he climbed so slowly. It would be hard to find an excuse to deal with him. Yes. I feel a little tired recently and need to go to White Dragon Temple to rest for a while. Eunuch Mu was slightly stunned. Why did he suddenly change the topic? Yes. No matter what the reason was, he didn't need to think too much, let alone hesitate. He just needed to do it properly for his master. After a while, Li Hongyuan spoke again. Mu-en, you are becoming more and more careless in serving me. Eunuch Mu was so shocked that his soul almost left his body. He hurriedly knelt down. Please forgive me, master. In the face of Li Hongyuan's questioning, don't try to explain, let alone refute. You just need to apologize and then beg for his forgiveness. If you can still live, then quickly reflect, find out your mistakes, and make up for them. Before his master lost his temper, Eunuch Mu thought hard about what he had done. What had he done to make his master dissatisfied? Under what circumstances did his master say that he was careless? It seemed that... Suddenly, Eunuch Mu thought of a possibility. Please give me another chance, master. Li Hongyuan raised his eyes and glanced at him lightly. You are not hopeless. Eunuch Mu was terrified. Li Hongyuan was the exact opposite. He didn't mind his subordinates guessing his thoughts. If you could guess his thoughts accurately, or even if he didn't say anything, you could do it beautifully. He would even reward you generously. Unfortunately, his thoughts had always been strange and unpredictable. Sometimes, it didn't seem obvious, but no one knew what he was thinking. This was only for those who understood his nature. If it were those who didn't know, they would be as ignorant as fools. They wouldn't even know when they offended him and were secretly dealt with. Eunuch Mu grew up with him. It was good enough that he could guess it once or twice out of 10 times. Of course, these were generally private affairs. Eunuch Mu was not qualified to intervene in other matters. In the past few years, his master's biggest private matter was Miss Luo. As long as that person's matter was handled well, he could be exempted from responsibility if he made mistakes in other places. Therefore, not only Eunuch Mu, it could be said that everyone close to Li Hongyuan was eager for that person to marry into Jin Wangfu as soon as possible, so that they could tie down their master, the King of Hell. Coaxing the future Wang Fei well, even if you had no ability, you could live the most unscrupulously. It was simply an open secret in their circle. Qin Tianming hasn't come yet? He's getting more and more arrogant. Ben Wang can't invite him. Eunuch Mu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Daran has arrived and is waiting outside. It must be said that Qin Tianming was really wronged. When he learned that Jin Wangye summoned him, he saw that the sky was dark and quietly came over because they basically met at night. Today, he kept feeling that his eyelids were twitching. It could be said that he came much earlier than before and had been waiting outside the study for Jin Wangye. However, when he appeared and paid his respects, he was directly ignored. He stood there like a wooden stake for nearly 2 hours. There was no tea or water. He stood there and couldn't move at will. His legs were about to stiffen. In the end, the King of Hell forgot that there was someone outside. How could he be so aggrieved? When Eunuch Mu called him in, he breathed a sigh of relief and tightened at the same time. He was glad that he didn't have to continue to stand there as punishment. At the same time, he was very nervous. Under normal circumstances, this master wouldn't summon them. Basically, he would only come when there was an important matter. But after thinking for a long time, he didn't feel that there was anything important recently. Could it be that the fire in by Ri Flower Market was actually related to this person? This official greets Wangye. Long live Wangye. Li Hongyuan didn't wake him up and just left him hanging. Whether it was the death penalty or a reprieve, he just didn't give him a happy ending. After all, Qin Tianming was not Fu Yunting. Not to mention that he was at the same age as Fu Yunting's father. He had led troops to kill enemies and experienced the baptism of blood and death. Even though Fu Yunting's wisdom far exceeded that of his peers due to the changes in the Fu family, he was still inferior to Qin Tianming. Although he felt uneasy facing Li Hongyuan, in fact, he was not too worried. He believed that he had never done anything that was disadvantageous to this person. At most, he would be tortured by him, but he would never take his life. Although the person in front of him was often said to be temperamental, sinister and ruthless, and had no other good points except for his face, people who came into contact with him in private would know that although his methods were ruthless and his emotions were erratic, he was definitely not someone who couldn't control himself and casually disregarded human life. What was even more ridiculous was that he was also proficient in the art of war. Occasionally, when they talked about it, they always felt that it wasn't just an armchair strategist. No matter if it was arranging troops, deploying troops, dispatching generals, or all kinds of strategies, all of them showed that he was an outstanding general who had experienced countless battles. Jin Wangye Li Hongyuan had never left the capital since he was born. Since childhood, his temper was irritable and he did things as he pleased. His talent and learning were mediocre. He was the most troublesome person for the Thai tutors. They had never heard that he had learned anything like the art of war. But in fact, the truth hidden under the surface made people who came into contact with this truth feel stormy waves. When did he learn these things and how did he learn these things? Moreover, after their careful observation and deliberation, they found out that even the emperor didn't know about him. Before the age of 16, he was in the palace, but to be able to do so many things behind the emperor's back, what kind of ability was this? It could be understood that he was hiding it for self-protection. After all, he didn't have a biological mother when he was born. But to be able to hide it so deeply, it couldn't be explained with just the word smart. Although the emperor couldn't be called a wise ruler for thousands of years, his ability wasn't bad. Although he wasn't as good as the top, he was still better than the bottom. Regarding the handling of the country's major affairs, it wasn't as smooth as his heart, nor was it satisfactory. Most of the time, he could still get the approval of the courtiers. This was an emperor who had been in the imperial court for 20 to 30 years. But when he left the imperial court, in private, in the imperial court, he basically didn't open his mouth. Regarding the matters of the world, Jin Wangye could often hit the nail on the head and hit the nail on the head. Regarding the matters that they argued with until their faces turned red, he could solve it with just a few words. This made some old foxes admire him so much that they would prostrate themselves in admiration. And through these people, he would present the best method to the emperor. This time, he would let this person be in the limelight. Next time, it would be another person, very good at balancing the situation in the imperial court. They didn't know how many people were controlled by Jin Wangye, but they faintly felt that even if he didn't control half of the courtiers, through his various arrangements, perhaps he had invisibly controlled half of the Qi Yuan dynasty. He wasn't an emperor, but early on, he did what an emperor should do, and had the tendency to be an emperor for thousands of years. This was wisdom that far surpassed his age, shrewdness that far surpassed ordinary people. To be able to do this, it was still very inconceivable. But they were also willing to follow him and assist him. They never doubted that this country wouldn't be his. After all, compared to him, the other princes were simply fireflies competing for splendor with the moon. Even if the emperor passed the throne to the other princes in the future, they probably wouldn't mind being a rebellious courtier and helping Jin Wangye seize the throne. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652943 HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 63. What he had was not only a good appearance, but also a smart brain and a good body. He was blessed by nature in all aspects. Therefore, he was the fastest and the best among the princes in both literary and martial arts. He had learned everything he needed to learn in his previous life. Therefore, he was cheated and schemed against. However, these things made him the final winner. Although it was not a perfect victory, in just a few years, his ability was comparable to the most brilliant monarch in history. Moreover, he had been in that position for nearly 20 years. To him, government affairs were as simple as eating and drinking. He had a bad temper. This could be said to be a natural trait. However, in his previous life, he learned to restrain himself. Later on, because of the unforeseen events, he completely released his nature. Therefore, although he was the divine lord in the eyes of the people, he was a complete tyrant in the eyes of the courtiers. He was the emperor who confiscated property, the monarch who exterminated clans. He had killed too many people, especially for... When everything started over again, he no longer learned the things he had learned. He no longer admired his father, and he no longer restrained his temper. Since there were people who were willing to protect him, he naturally could not let them down. He did as he pleased. If he was happy, he would teach you a lesson. If he was unhappy, he would teach you a lesson. You have raised a good son. While Qin Tianming's thoughts were in a mess, Li Hongyuan suddenly spoke. Qin Tianming was startled. For a moment, he could not tell whether Li Hongyuan was speaking the truth or not. Your Highness, please enlighten me. Even if he guessed, he might not be able to guess it. Thus, he decided to ask directly to avoid making himself even more embarrassed. Qin Tianming, you are a smart person. You are also capable in other aspects, but it is a pity that you are not good at raising children. As the saying goes, it is the father's fault if he does not teach them well. If you are busy with work and do not have time to teach them well, this prince does not mind letting you take a long vacation. You can come back when you have taught them well. Li Hongyuan held the teacup and poked it with the lid, but it didn't enter his mouth. He put it back, and there was a soft crisp sound. Qin Tianming knew that Prince Jin was not joking. If he said he would do it, he would do it. He might not be able to take off his official position directly, but even if he could, he would not do so. Prince Jin had always been good at borrowing power and driving a wedge between people. Although the Marquis of Champion was also glorious, if he lost his position as the left commander-in-chief, the Marquis of Champion would suffer a disastrous decline, and his branch would suffer the harshest blow. After all, he did not have a good relationship with his father in the early years, and they almost broke off. Right now, the champion constabulary seemed to be in harmony, and his father was also particularly fond of him. Although what he fancied was only the power in his hands, the world thought that he compromised with his father for the sake of his reputation. If that was really the case, he wouldn't have secretly submitted to the Empress and the eldest Prince Gong Qin Wang when the champion constabulary was supporting the fourth prince, the Gong Qin Wang. Although there was a little accident, the master he was ultimately loyal to was Jin Qin Wang. To climb to the position of the left commander-in-chief, he had paid too much. If he lost it like this, it would not be as simple as being unwilling. Right now, he just wanted to immediately rush back and beat up those evil creatures. He wanted to ask them, which one of them ate the bear's heart and leopard's gall, daring to provoke this living king of hell, a person that all the princes and concubines, as well as the emperor's peers, did not dare to provoke. What kind of thing was the grandson of the champion constabulary, the son of the left commander-in-chief? It's this official's fault. Please give this official another chance. This official will go back and teach them well. Everyone says that you are a smart person, very good at judging the situation. Moreover, compared to other people, you are not so afraid of Ben Wang. Fortunately, once you have set your mind on something, you will not easily have second thoughts. However, is Ben Wang the master that you have set your mind on? If he was still calm before, Qin Tianming really had some fear at this time. However, at this time, swearing to express his loyalty was useless. Prince Jin did not believe in these things. After calming himself down, he somewhat hoarsely opened his mouth. This is the so-called, a woman dresses up for the one who likes her, a gentleman dies for the one who understands him. Although this official and my father do not get along, this official has no doubts about the belief of being loyal to the monarch and defending the country. I hope that Qi Yuan will be strong, and I hope that the world will be peaceful. Li Hongyuan was silent for a moment. Has Ben Wang ever told you that the world is not that important in Ben Wang's eyes? Qin Tianming suddenly raised his head and looked at Li Hongyuan in disbelief. His lips trembled, but not a word came out. He wanted to say that it was impossible, but he could feel that Prince Jin was not joking. You want to ask why? Since it is not that important, why do you have to be so deliberate? Only with supreme power can one do whatever one wants. The country is not the most important to this prince, but it is something that must be controlled. Furthermore, this prince believes that the possibility of this prince becoming a tyrant is far greater than that of a wise ruler. Therefore, you can still reconsider and choose another wise ruler. Qin Tianming thought that he had long been able to remain calm, but now he had to admit that he was a little confused. Seeing Qin Tianming's appearance, Li Hongyuan suddenly smiled with an unknown meaning. It was a smile that made countless women infatuated, but Qin Tianming was so shocked that all the blood in his body froze. The bloodthirst and killing intent in his eyes was so obvious. At this moment, he really felt it. Prince Jin Li Hongyuan, the side that people did not know about was admirable. The side that people knew about was real and not a disguise. He did not lose his mind, he knew what he was doing, he really decided your life and death based on his mood. Wang Ye. Qin Tianming suppressed the strong desire to run away. If you lose your life, everything is empty talk. This official also firmly believes that whether Wang Ye is a wise monarch or a tyrant, you will certainly not joke about Qi Yuan's foundation. Scared? Li Hongyuan relaxed his body and leaned back. He seemed to be in a good mood, very leisurely and contented. Qin Tianming lowered his head and remained silent. He was really scared. Whether you are loyal or not, it doesn't matter. If you have the ability, if you have the courage, find another master, or even report to Fu Huang, Ben Wang will not frown. If Ben Wang is brought down by you, then it's your own incompetence. If you can't bring down Ben Wang, then it's your bad luck. Simply arrogant to the point of conceit. Qin Tianming did not dare to question, Mu Gonggong did not dare to question, and the shadow gods in the dark did not dare to question. Go back and train the young masters well. You are a tiger general, so don't raise a nest of dog sons. Ben Wang will not be stingy with the tiger cubs. Ben Wang is not afraid of being overshadowed. If you have the ability, one duke and one marquis in a family is nothing. If you have 2 dukes in a family, even if you have 3 dukes and 4 dukes, I can still help you. The stick was ruthless, but the date was also extremely tempting. Qin Tianming had not yet broken free from the shock when he heard the words, which aroused the courage and ambition in his bones. The combination of the two together made his body involuntarily tremble. Wang Ye, get out of here. This official will leave now. Qin Tianming stood up and staggered, not because his legs were numb, but because he was a little weak. He did not dare to lose his manners, so he slowed down his movements and retreated out of the study. The night wind blew, and his back was cold. Qin Tianming was shocked to realize that his clothes were wet. What happened today could not be considered as making things difficult for him. However, the psychological pressure he was under was unprecedented. Qin Tianming returned to the champion Marquis Fu and called his sons, regardless of whether they were Di or Shu, to the study. Even if they were asleep or still performing the rites, he could not hesitate for a moment. Each one of them was at a loss. What was going on? What did you all do today? Tell me one by one. They did not dare to disobey their father's orders. Starting from the eldest, they began to tell the details one by one. The more he listened, the tighter Qin Tianming's brows furrowed. It was not because they had discovered something big, but on the contrary, the most outrageous behavior was just going to the brothel, drinking a little wine, or gambling a little. The Gongzi brothers of the capital, 10 times out of 10, did these things. It was nothing. Just these, Jin Qinhuang would definitely not ask. Are you sure you are not hiding anything? After getting their affirmative nod, I will say it again, no details can be left out. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652944. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 64. Qin Tianming's brows furrowed like a river. He couldn't find any suspicious points. Moreover, according to Jin Qinhuang's temperament, if he was present and offended him, he definitely wouldn't remain silent. But an unintentional sentence, a small matter, even if it offended Jin Qinhuang, it wouldn't reach his ears. What was going on? Qin Tianming probably couldn't think of it even if he cracked his head. It was just because his youngest Di son kicked over the black peony in anger. The Luo family's daughter, Jing Wan, was distressed for the flower, and Li Hongyuan was distressed for her. At that time, he couldn't show that he cared about her, so he could only find someone to settle the account behind her back. Qin Tianming's youngest Di son didn't have the qualifications to stand in front of Li Hongyuan, so he could only do it. In desperation, Qin Tianming gave his sons a confinement order. If they had official business, they were to return home immediately after finishing. If they had nothing to do, they weren't allowed to step out of the house half a step. From today onwards, the books that were thrown away were to be picked up again, and the martial arts that were abandoned were to be picked up again. Several Qin Gongzi were stupefied by their father's move. Those who had official positions were fine, but those who didn't have official positions and loved to play, such as Qin Tianming's youngest Di son, were simply asking for their old lives. Just as they were about to habitually refute a few words, their father threw them a glare, and they obediently shut their mouths. When his mother was protecting him, he could still be unyielding, but his mother wasn't unprincipled in protecting him. When it came to serious matters, one wrong move, and she dealt with him more ruthlessly than his father. Qin Tianming suspected that this matter was likely caused by this youngest Di son. Usually, he was the one who could cause trouble the most, so he didn't have a good expression. Compared to other people, he was more cautious and warned that if he dared to sneak away, he would directly break his legs. However, it was Qin Tianming's simple and crude approach that made his branch more prosperous, and also allowed his youngest Di son to avoid the retaliatory blow caused by the fire in the flower market. Qin Tianming could only temporarily solve the matter like this, but he still didn't know if that master would be satisfied. The person Qin Tianming was thinking about someone else at this moment. It must be said that this ferocious beast was not a vegetarian to begin with. It had always restrained itself from eating meat. However, today, it suddenly licked 2 mouthfuls of fragrant, fatty meat. It was the piece of meat that it had been longing for a long time. It was only because of many restrictions that it could not swallow it whole that it restrained itself. Perhaps it was because of the environment, but at that time, giving up on the fatty meat in its mouth was not something unbearable. However, now that it was late at night, it could not help but recall the taste. It seemed to be incomparably delicious, yet it also felt like it had not tasted anything. The more it was like this, the more unbearable it became, and the more restless the evil fire in its body became. When he bathed, he directly soaked in cold water. Eunuch Mu trembled with fear when he saw this. It was still a little cold at night. What if the cold air entered his body? In fact, what Eunuch Mu was more puzzled was why his master had wronged himself like this. He was clearly a prince, and had a reputation of being dissolute. Even if he changed his bed every night, no one could say anything about it. In fact, as far as he knew, his master really did not have a single woman. Sometimes, he even suspected that his master had a hidden disease. However, as a close attendant, he was very clear about his master's physical condition. It could not be better. After eliminating all the possibilities, the only reason left was the most unlikely one. His master was keeping his chastity for Miss Luo. What was the reason that could make such a proud and honorable person like his master do this? And it was under the circumstances that the other party was completely unaware of it. They knew that his master had a secret because he had not concealed it and did not care about letting them know. As for what the secret was, they had no way to find out, and they did not dare to find out. Li Hongyuan soaked in the cold water for 2 hours, but it seemed that there was no effect. Eunuch Mu was called in by Li Hongyuan. He originally thought that he was going to wait on him to sleep. Unexpectedly, Li Hongyuan had already put on his clothes. He was wearing a black brocade robe, a belt around his waist, and a pair of brocade shoes of the same color. In addition, he had no other accessories. But his hair was still wet and hanging down, which did not cover his coldness. On the contrary, for some reason, he made people more and more afraid to approach him. Eunuch Mu had to go forward to dry Li Hongyuan's hair. It took him some time, and then he automatically tied up his hair. He had made a mistake once, and he could not make the same mistake again. It was not the first time for him to go out at night. But Eunuch Mu had a feeling that the purpose of tonight was different from before. The secret guards who followed Li Hongyuan thought that he had something important to do. When they arrived outside the courtyard wall of the Luo family, they thought of a certain possibility and could not believe it. However, when they saw their master jump over the wall and enter, these well-trained secret guards could not help but be stunned. Fortunately, the stiff expression did not last for too long. Thinking of the fact that their master kidnapped people during the day, it seemed that it was not surprising that he would do something like sneaking into a lady's room at night. What did the secret guards do? When their master planned, they took action first. When their master had an accident, they risked their lives to save him. When their master killed someone, they dealt with the aftermath. Now that their master wanted to sneak into a lady's room, they naturally had to keep watch. They looked at each other. Those who should be outside stayed outside, and those who should go in went in. They had a tacit understanding of the division of labor and did not need to communicate with each other. Although Li Hongyuan had never been to the Luo family, he was very familiar with the layout of the Luo family. He did not need to take a detour. He avoided the guards on night patrol and went directly to Begonia Elegant House. At this time, Begonia Elegant House was naturally sleeping in the dark like other places. Hearing the familiar signal, Mama Gong was immediately alerted. She nimbly got up, but did not make any sound. She listened carefully. The sound was very soft and did not disturb others. Mama Gong held a slightly bright lamp and walked into the courtyard. She saw the figure standing proudly. It was obviously a man, and it was very obvious that he was not one of the secret guards. Mama Gong immediately realized who it was. Mama Gong hated that she could not fiercely bite him. Mama Gong stepped forward. With the help of the dim light, she finally saw the other party's face. It was indeed the living king of hell who meant what he said. "Greetings to your highness. Your highness came in the middle of the night. It is really improper and has broken the rules. It also degrades your highness's prestige and loses your bearing and self-restraint. The secret guards who followed behind her almost broke out in cold sweat. They didn't know that the Lady Protector was capable in all aspects. These two were not ordinary. While they were sweating for her, they also faintly admired her in their hearts. This prince thought that Mama Gong should have known that these things are nothing to this prince. If this prince wants to see Wan Wan, you can't stop me. I don't think this prince needs to teach you what to do. Mama Gong suppressed the anger in her heart. There was a hungry wolf coveting her miss, but she had to be an accomplice. If she let the other secret guards do it, a group of rough men would cause her miss's servant girls to suffer. Therefore, she could only use a gentle method to let those servant girls have a good night's sleep. Your Highness, please wait a moment. Li Hongyuan stood in the courtyard. When he saw the dim light in Jingwan's room, he walked straight in. Because of the injury on her foot, Jingwan was determined not to let her keep watch at night. Moreover, Jingwan did not like to let others keep watch at night. Therefore, the two senior servant girls were the ones who were guarding outside tonight. However, Mama Gong had already moved them to another place. Mama Gong waited in the room without any intention of leaving. Li Hongyuan completely ignored her and casually threw an item to her. Mama Gong subconsciously caught it and opened the cloth wrapped around it. When she saw the item inside, she really did not know what expression she should have. He used a precious treasure like the night luminescent pearl to spy on a beauty at night. Li Hongyuan walked to Jingwan's bedside and lifted the muslin curtain. When he saw Jingwan's peaceful and beautiful sleeping face, his restless heart suddenly calmed down. In his previous life, he had not seen her sleeping face many times. However, every time he saw her sleeping face, her brows were tightly knitted, as if she was in a nightmare and could not escape. Li Hongyuan reached out and gently brushed his fingers across her brows. They were smooth and delicate. Following the corner of her eyes, his fingers sank into her hair. Her well-maintained black hair made it hard for him to part with it. Mama Gong put the night luminescent pearl into a hollow incense ball and hung it at the head of the bed. Immediately, the inside of the curtain could be seen clearly. Jingwan's originally excellent skin was now glowing like a pearl. Compared to his previous life, this was the first and only time he hugged her. Although his body was originally good, he had experienced all kinds of hardships and had become rough. However, it was this kind of her that made him intoxicated. It made him shameless and unscrupulous. In this life, he must protect her well. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652945. HTML Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 65. Your Highness. Even though Mama Gong lowered her voice, there was still a hint of sternness in her voice. Li Hongyuan turned his head and glanced at her indifferently. That glance made Mama Gong's heart jump to her throat, blocking all the words she had yet to say. Nanny Gong frowned. The possessiveness in her eyes was dense to the point it couldn't be dispersed, and she seemed like a wild beast that occupied its territory. Whoever dared obstruct her or tried to seize her prey would immediately pounce out and tear that person into pieces. Either get out, or shut up for this prince. Mama Gong's face was stiff. After a few breaths, she opened her mouth and said, "Your Highness really cares for Mississippi. No matter what you do, please think for Mississippi." Then she crouched down and left. No matter whether she was happy or angry, she never forgot the rules and etiquette. She had always been strict with herself, but tolerant of others. She was meticulous with Jingwan. Although Jingwan's servant girls revered her, they mostly treated her like family. Sometimes she was the best teaching. During the day, she had reminded Li Hongyuan once. This was the second time, and it would also be the last time. Li Hongyuan, the former master, had a bad temper and often did unimaginable things. Moreover, he always did whatever he wanted. If it was something else or someone else, it was impossible to expect him to restrain himself. However, this person was her young lady. Nanny Gong had a deep trust in him. Based on how much he cared for her, he really held her in the palm of his hand and placed her at the top of his heart. Sometimes, she even felt that if he had to choose between the river and the young lady, he would choose the young lady. That kind of love was not fake. After all, the young lady herself did not know. Naturally, it was impossible for her to show it to people like them. If he could do this, how could he do something bad to Miss at this critical moment? If he really couldn't control himself and took Miss's body, he would definitely think of a way to deal with the aftermath and not let Miss's reputation be tarnished. Now that Granny Gong had thought this through, she decided not to continue to stand there and cause trouble. Li Hongyuan really didn't care whether Granny Gong went out or not. She slowly took off her shoes and socks, then her outer robe, and then her inner garment. The whole process was quite pleasing to the eyes. Finally, she took off her crown, and her hair that didn't belong to Jingwan fell down. It must be said that Nanny Gong had also used something on Jingwan. Otherwise, she couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't pounce on him in this situation. After all, he was a handsome man with an amazing body. In the middle of the night, a man and a woman alone in a place where one's imagination would run wild, doing something so seductive. Most importantly, his deep eyes were filled with only her. How many people could resist him? Jingwan felt that she would most likely become a layman at that moment. Unfortunately, Jingwan was in a deep sleep. Because she was drugged with something to calm her nerves, she didn't even dream. Naturally, she was unaware of the outside world. Li Hongyuan placed his hand on the neckline of his underwear. After hesitating for a moment, he slowly tore off his underwear as well. His slender and powerful body and wheat-colored skin, even though he was a grown man, due to his pampered upbringing and proper maintenance, he looked just as delicate. Li Hongyuan lifted the brocade quilt and was about to slide in, but his body couldn't help but stiffen. The situation under the quilt was very different from what he had imagined. It looked like she was sleeping properly, but what was underneath was not proper at all. Because Mama Gong practiced martial arts, her hearing was far better than ordinary people. When she heard the faint sounds outside, she suddenly thought of her Mrs. Bad habit that couldn't be corrected. She was originally a hungry wolf. If she continued like this, she really couldn't stay calm. Jingwan, who was originally unaware of the outside world, opened her eyes in a daze. Coincidentally, her eyes met with Li Hongyuan's. Perhaps Li Hongyuan didn't expect Jingwan to wake up. He was stunned for a moment and didn't know how to react. However, Jingwan rubbed against his body because of her discomfort. This reaction made Li Hongyuan instantly understand that Jingwan wasn't really awake. Otherwise, a girl in the boudoir wouldn't be like this when she suddenly encountered something like this. Li Hongyuan sighed in relief and at the same time felt a little regretful. He was prepared to be discovered by Jingwan. However, some things weren't easy to explain. He still hoped that after the two of them got married, they would have some time together. Then, even if some of the things he did were a little out of line, he could confidently say that he fell in love with her at first sight. However, he, Li Hongyuan, wasn't a saint. He helped her do everything behind her back, but she didn't know anything about it. He was still a little unhappy. Jingwan's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. The corners of her eyes were dyed with an abnormal shade of red. Since she was awake, Li Hongyuan just assumed that the two of them were in love with each other. That exceptionally pleasant voice kept calling out, "Wan Wan," by her ear. Li Hongyuan had experienced the ups and downs of his previous life. He had tasted all kinds of joys and sorrows. He had stepped through wind, frost, rain, and snow. Countless people wouldn't be able to experience the ups and downs of life. Therefore, his rationality was absolutely beyond anyone's imagination. Even if he was sinking, he knew that now wasn't the time. Therefore, he didn't completely indulge himself. Mama Gong waited outside for 2 hours before she heard the living king of hell calling for her to come in. Even though she was mentally prepared, Mama Gong still quickly walked in after hearing the call. She lost her usual calmness. Li Hongyuan was loosely draped in a robe. He wrapped Jingwan in a quilt and held her in his arms as he sat on a soft couch. His hair was loose and his eyes were half closed. There was a hint of laziness in his expression. The usual hostility and gloominess were all gone. His entire person had softened, and because of this, he appeared even more attractive. Even Mama Gong couldn't help but be startled when she saw him. In just a short moment, Mama Gong looked at Jingwan's peaceful sleeping face and quickly walked to the bedside. She lifted the gauze curtain and looked at the messy bed. Her heart was filled with panic. Fortunately, there were no traces of blood. Mama Gong deftly changed the things on the bed. She turned around to look at Li Hongyuan. "Your Highness, this servant asked your people to go back and get some clothes for you. I'll also pour some water for you to wash up in the washroom." Li Hongyuan opened his eyes and glanced at her. He got up with Jingwan in his arms and put her on the bed. Mama Gong mixed some warm water for him and put it in the washroom. Then she went back to wash Jingwan. In order not to disturb others, she naturally couldn't take a bath in a big way. Mama Gong lifted the quilt and saw that Jingwan didn't have any marks on her body. She didn't know whether she should admire his endurance or doubt his love for this girl. It was said that it was difficult to control oneself when one was deeply in love. Even if he was a man with an unmentionable disease, it wouldn't prevent him from leaving some marks. However, it was obvious that Nanny Gong's idea was premature. When she turned Jingwan over and wiped her back, Nanny Gong was so angry that she almost fainted when she saw the dense marks on her back. Her skin color was not normal at all. Some of the marks even had small red dots the size of a needle tip. If she didn't apply medicine, Jingwan would definitely notice it when she woke up tomorrow morning. This made Mama Gong almost unable to restrain herself and do something that offends her superiors. When Li Hongyuan came out of the washroom, Mama Gong was concentrating on applying medicine for Jingwan. She was angry and naturally didn't give him a good face. However, although Li Hongyuan only tasted a bit of meat, it was still far from being full. Right now, he was in a good mood and didn't bother to argue. She tidied up Jingwan, including her hair. The most important thing was that she put on her underwear. Seeing that Li Hongyuan wouldn't leave at this time, Mama Gong packed up her things and went out. Out of sight, out of mind. Li Hongyuan supported his head with one hand, lying on his side and looking at Jingwan. His fingers twirled a strand of her hair around his finger and played with it. Ben Wang originally didn't intend to do anything. It was you, Wan, who seduced Ben Wang first. Therefore, you can't blame Ben Wang for not doing the same. If Jingwan heard his words, she would probably be irritable. Jin Qin Wang, where's your face? https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652946. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Gur mobile reading website bicken.com. Chapter 66. Li Hongyuan hugged Jingwan for a moment before getting up. Gong Momo knew that unless it was necessary, he did not like people to get close to him, so she did not step forward to help him change his clothes. However, he was able to hug the girl all night. From this point, it could be seen that he treated the girl differently. Li Hongyuan quickly put on his clothes, freshened up, and sat back on the bed. He fixed his gaze on Jingwan and finally leaned over to kiss her lips. Take good care of her. Only then did he leave. The shadow guards who had been standing guard outside did not dare to have the slightest complaint. Moreover, when they found that their master did not have such a heavy air of hostility, they could not help but be secretly happy. Once again, they hoped that the future Wang Fei would be able to pass through the door earlier. Taking advantage of the night, how he came, how he went back, except for a few people, Even the person involved, Jingwan, did not know that the dignified Jin Qinhuang had visited the Luo Fu at night. This visit lasted for nearly 3 shechen. Li Hongyuan, on the other hand, felt refreshed. Jingwan, on the other hand, was not in a good state. After waking up, she seemed to be in a daze. She did not get up as usual. Instead, she sat on the bed as if she had nothing to live for. She had been dreaming all night, and it was the kind of dream that she did not have during the most restless period of her previous life. She somewhat irritably pulled at her hair. In the end, what was going on? It was said that what one thinks during the day, one dreams at night, but she absolutely did not have the slightest bit of such thoughts. Then, she belatedly realized that she was wearing clothes and that the things on the bed had been changed. Especially when Gong Momo just happened to walk to the bedside. "Miss, do you want to get up?" Jingwan could not help but imagine. How big of a commotion did she make last night that even the people who were standing guard outside found out? She did not have the face to see people, okay? "Mama." Jingwan moved her mouth, but the rest of the words could not come out. Gong Momo was not old, but she was shrewd. How could she not know Jingwan's thoughts? It seems that Miss had a nightmare last night. Newbie just happened to come in and saw that Miss was sweating, so Newbie wiped Miss and changed the mattress. Jingwan heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. However, she felt that Gong Momo said this to protect her face. She was also very glad that it was not the Yahuan who found out. As for why Gong Momo came in at night, it was not the least bit strange. She almost did not get up at night, and would not ask for water, but Gong Momo treated her like a child, for fear that she would lift the quilt and catch a cold. She did not seem to feel at ease if she did not check. Gong Momo, Momo, Gong, Gong Momo. Gong Momo had expected this, so the hot water was quickly carried into the bathroom. Jingwan was sure again that she made a big commotion last night. In fact, Jingwan was not sure whether the Yahuan knew it or not. For the first time, she was like an ostrich, so she did not ask them to serve her and continued to bother Gong Momo. This was exactly what Gong Momo wanted. After all, if the Yahuan saw the marks on her back, they would be shocked. Even if she could find a way to cover it up, it would be very troublesome. Jingwan nestled comfortably in the water and gradually forgot the awkwardness from before. In fact, she still had a question in her mind. Why didn't she feel anything when Gong Momo wiped her body and dressed her? Why did she sleep so soundly? Well, it was very embarrassing. And according to the conservative thinking of everyone, even if it was Gong Momo, Jingwan really could not ask. So, she could only stop here and erase it from her mind as soon as possible. Even if it felt very real, especially that pair of eyes that almost drowned her, and that deep and sexy voice, according to the saying in her previous life, her ears were about to get pregnant. However, Jingwan treated it purely as a dream. She was very open-minded and did not hesitate to forget about it. But Gong Momo, who looked at her back, did not know how angry she was. And according to her understanding of the living hell, if there was a first time, there would be a second time. Maybe in the future, he would often do such a night attack. She could only cover for him and not let others know that the girl she pampered in the palm of her hand was not protected well, but was sent to the mouth of a hungry wolf as an accomplice. The more she thought about it, the more depressed she felt. She did not pay attention and hit her a little harder. Jingwan hissed and gasped twice. In fact, it was not too painful. It was just that it came suddenly, so she was particularly sensitive. But the skin was so tender that it hurt when a soft towel rubbed it with a little force. Was it really going to be made of tofu? Gong Momo hurriedly softened her strength. "Miss, is it painful?" "It's okay. I don't know why, but I feel strange. It's my fault. I was distracted and hit you a little harder." If she could see her back, she would not feel strange. After bathing, she took care of her body as usual and applied some medicine. The pain was gone, but the marks would not disappear in a short time. Jingwan cleaned up and began to do morning exercises. Even if she was sweating and had to take a bath again, it did not matter. As a girl of the noble family, she was so capricious. After more than half an hour of morning exercises and bathing, Jingwan regained her vitality. As usual, she ate a bowl of nourishing porridge. When she went to pay respects to her mother, she met her father. It seemed that he was not in good spirits because of a hangover. Later, Concubine Ji, Concubine Ping, and the two Shu sisters came one after another. Needless to say, the elder brother was not young, so he did not have to pay respects every day. "Where is Madame Bai?" Luo Rongyan did not see her, so he asked casually. In his opinion, even if she was pregnant, she still had to do what she should do. It was just paying respects, and it was not a long journey. How could she be tired? Jingwan glanced at her father. He still did not know about Madame Bai. Therefore, Jingwan respected her father more than enough, but was not close enough. From her own point of view, she naturally hoped that he would not put the concubines in his eyes. However, from the concubine's point of view, he was a complete scum. Moreover, he was not a competent father. She gently pinched Madame Zhang, who was about to speak. If she let her mother say it, she did not know what she would say. Moreover, there were two younger sisters present. How could she say those dirty things so casually? "Father, your face does not look good. How about I take my two younger sisters to pay respects to grandmother first? You can go later?" Luo Rongyan was not stupid. He knew that there was something going on. He nodded and said, "Okay, you go first." Jingwan led Luo Jingyu and Luo Jingwei away. Before leaving, she glanced at Concubine Ji. Concubine Ji nodded imperceptibly, indicating that she understood Jingwan's meaning. Rather than letting Madame Zhang say this, it was better to let Concubine Ji say it. As the saying goes, one must pay attention to the art of speaking. The same matter, different words could lead to different results. Concubine Ji was very clear about her position. Therefore, Jingwan believed that she would say this matter perfectly. If Madame Bai knew her place, Jingwan naturally would not do anything to her. However, as Luo said, she relied on the piece of meat in her belly to abuse her power. Now that something had happened, she could not blame Jingwan for adding insult to injury. In the eyes of Concubine Ji and the others, Jingwan was too soft-hearted. If it were up to them, it would be best to directly cause an accident and let her die suddenly. Just confining her was too easy on her. Compared to Falling Plum House, the main courtyard was more lively. As soon as Jingwan and her sisters arrived, the people from the third branch also arrived. However, compared to before, there was an additional woman. Even if Jingwan did not have any impression of the concubines from the third branch, she immediately understood that this woman was the one that her third uncle had brought back last night. She really did look like a beauty that would make anyone feel pity for her. Logically speaking, ordinary concubines did not have the qualifications to greet old Madame, especially someone like old Madame Luo, who did not like concubines. Madame Lu was not a fool. Even if she pretended to be virtuous and magnanimous, she would not do such a stupid thing. Then, there was only one reason. Luo Rongping had her bring a concubine who had been exposed to old Madame Luo. Naturally, she was much better than those concubines who had silently died in the back courtyard and no one would know. It was clear that this woman had a high position in Luo Rongping's heart. "Mother, this is the little sister that third master brought back last night. He treats her like his own flesh and blood. Didn't this daughter-in-law bring her here early in the morning for you to see?" Madame Lu said with a smile. However, everyone could see that her smile was forced and her words were filled with grievances. Jingwan sighed in her heart. Her acting skills were amazing. Jingwan would believe that she was burning with anger because Luo Rongping had humiliated her, but she would not believe that she would compromise. Her purpose was nothing more than to gain sympathy in front of old Madame Luo. As long as old Madame Luo stood on her side and supported her, then no matter how much Luo Rongping doted on this woman, she would not be able to cause any trouble. This little sister is not only beautiful, but her name is also good. She is called https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/6652947. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 67. As a concubine, without the permission of the mistress, she dared to speak casually, let alone interrupt her. Mrs. Lu should have reprimanded her for being so unruly, but she didn't. Instead, she showed a look of fear. Nyang, after all, my younger sister just got married. She doesn't understand many rules. Please forgive her. If these words were said by Madame Zhang, other people would only think that she was hopeless. But since it was Madame Lu, the way everyone looked at her was a bit strange. Was it because she felt threatened, or Jingwan's attention was not on Mrs. Lu? In her opinion, no matter what Mrs. Lu's reaction was, it was normal. But this woman who called herself Huan Nyang, looking at her posture, she was not a person who didn't understand etiquette. But she did such a rude thing. It could only be said that what Mrs. Lu wanted to say might be more unfavorable to her. As the saying goes, choose the lesser of two evils. However, Mrs. Lu only wanted to say her name. The harm caused by a name was nothing more than offending and taboo. Jingwan's first thought was that her name might offend her grandmother. As for the name Huan Nyang, it was most likely changed for some reason after Mrs. Lu saw her last night. And Mrs. Lu didn't say Huan Nyang's original name. Her purpose was to create trouble for Huan Nyang. Since it had nothing to do with her, Jingwan looked away after a few glances. She glanced at Luo Jingying, who looked a little dispirited, and Luo Jingqiang, who was much more beautiful than usual. Luo Jingying was probably scolded harshly, while Luo Jingqiang was about to break free. She didn't want to continue living in Luo Jingying's shadow and was gradually blooming her own brilliance. Jingwan didn't know that after she looked away, Huan Nyang was quietly sizing her up. Among the younger generation, old Madam doted on her the most. That kind of bearing and self-restraint, as well as the indifference from inside out, could only be cultivated by being carefree and following one's heart. It was really enviable. However, if she wanted to establish a foothold in this backyard, it was true that she couldn't offend her. However, it was not a bad method to occasionally use her hand to restrain Lu Shi. After all, people with discerning eyes could see that old Madam didn't like Lu Shi. If she used her hand to plot against Lu Shi, no matter what the result was, Lu Shi would suffer. However, she must be careful when doing things. If people knew that she was the one behind it, her end would be much worse than Mrs. Lu's. Jingwan didn't know that in this short period of time, someone had ideas about her. But even if she knew, it didn't matter. She would deal with whatever came her way. Even if those powerful people were given some time to plan carefully, even if she couldn't trample them into the mud, she could make them fall. And it would be easier to deal with the ghosts in this house. You are the third branch. As the mistress, you should take care of yourself. You don't need me to forgive you. Nyang is right. Mrs. Lu felt wronged. She looked at Madame Luo's eyes as if she was bullied by a concubine. Not only did she not get her mother-in-law's help, but her mother-in-law also bullied her. Even Jingwan was a little shocked by her mother's pitiful appearance. As the Lu matriarch's daughter, Luo Jingying was shocked speechless by her mother's appearance, not to mention the others. This style changed too quickly and too strangely. If Mrs. Lu hadn't been in front of everyone's eyes, they would have thought that she was a different person. However, looking at Madame Luo's originally indifferent face, it gradually sank and had a tendency to become colder and colder. The others were affected and became more and more quiet. Only Mrs. Lu was still the same. Just when Jingwan suspected that Mrs. Lu had also been seen through, she found a contradiction. Mrs. Lu's mood did not change with her grandmother's mood. This was not the performance of a bully. Even if her grandmother didn't like her, she didn't pull down her face like now. So, Mrs. Lu had really angered her grandmother. Jingwan looked carefully and thought carefully again. She understood that Mrs. Lu had not been seen through. She was still the same person, scheming and scheming. This time, she was angered by Luo Romping. She was ready to tear off her hypocritical mask and do something desperate. Madame Lu's appearance was actually a threat. If Madame Luo didn't stand on her side, then soon, the people outside would know that she was a punching bag. She was determined to drag the reputation of the Luo family down with her. Madame Luo sneered, "Mrs. Lu, I really misjudged you before." Although Madame Luo was usually kind, after all, she had accumulated power for decades. When her aura was released, Mrs. Lu would definitely not be able to withstand it. Her face could not help but turn pale. "Nyang, your daughter-in-law has no choice." In fact, what Madame Luo really cared about was not that Mrs. Lu was unscrupulous, but that she was selfish. For her own interests and face, she could completely abandon her children that she always talked about. If it was really for the good of the two children, why couldn't she endure it? After all, she was the mistress of the house. Even if Lady Huan had the upper hand, public opinion and etiquette would be on her side. As long as she endured it until her daughter got married and her son became an adult, she could let go of all the torment and revenge. But she just couldn't bear the slightest grievance. She didn't want to wait, and she didn't want to endure it. It was pure nonsense to say that she had always been compromising in the Luo family. It was fine if she was domineering in the third branch, but Madame Luo didn't suppress her, let alone torture her, and her sisters-in-law didn't make things difficult for her. It was she who wanted to pretend to be virtuous and magnanimous. Who could she blame? With Madame Luo's temper, even if her daughter-in-law had no children, she would not put people around her son. If you were really jealous and made a big scene, she might even help you stop those concubines from entering the house. If you were willing to pretend, who would take the initiative to speak up? It's not like you have nothing better to do. Speaking of which, she could keep pretending because her bottom line was not stepped on. But when her bottom line was stepped on, she was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. All the hair on her body stood up and she jumped up high. Lady Lu didn't care about her children, but Madame Luo could not care about the reputation of the Luo family. If it was really spread that she mistreated her son's daughter-in-law, being gossiped about was not a small matter. She was afraid that she would be caught and accused of not being strict with the family. If Luo Shongshu's political enemies also accused him of, "How can you sweep the world if you don't sweep the house?" his official position might be taken away. Madame Luo's eyes fell on Lady Huan. Go back and copy the female commandments 300 times, and then learn to be a concubine. I'm not feeling well, so I don't have to come to pay my respects in the future. It's so noisy that I have a headache. Lady Huan didn't complain or get angry. She was obedient. Many people sighed in their hearts. Sure enough, this person was not easy to deal with. She could force Lady Lu to use extreme methods to find Madame Luo to be her backer. Was this something that an ordinary person could do? Lady Lu was satisfied. Her disgusting image disappeared. This daughter-in-law will go back and talk to her. In the future, she will not disturb you. Madame Luo was the villain. Even if Luo Romping knew about it, at most, he would say a few words to Lady Lu. The punishment of his beloved would still be carried out, unless he dared to disobey Madame Luo. Madame Luo was not happy, so naturally, Jingwan was not happy. Originally, she wanted to watch the third branch's drama and add more firewood when needed, but now she changed her mind. Luo Jingying often targeted her, but she didn't care. But if he stretched his claws to the head of the person she cared about, then don't blame her for cutting off his claws. Dismissed. Those who didn't come don't need to come. After Madame Luo finished speaking, she directly got up and went to the back. Jingwan let her two younger sisters go back by themselves. She went to see Madame Luo. Jingwan was worried that something bad would happen to her because of anger. Madame Luo's sullen mood lasted for a while, so she talked to Jingwan about her marriage. Later, I will have someone send a message to your eldest grandaunt and let her send a message to your third granduncle. I believe that it will be settled in a month or two at most. At that time, the spring examination will be over, and Min Gear can have a double happiness. Grandmother, are you asking me to add happiness to Cousin Min? Jingwan said with a smile. Of course, a married daughter is like spilled water. Madame Luo pretended to be serious and said, Grandmother, granddaughter is sad. Jingwan cooperated and showed a pitiful look. The grandmother and granddaughter laughed together. The servants around Madame Luo all breathed a sigh of relief. Unexpectedly, before Madame Luo's message could be sent to the Chen family, news came from the other side, saying that their third brother, Chen Jingmin's grandfather, had brought his family to the capital again. When the letter was sent from their side, they also set off. Calculating the time, at most 10 days to half a month, the family would arrive in the capital. Madame Luo was very happy. Not only could she see her brother, whom she hadn't seen for many years, but she could also settle Wan's marriage as soon as possible. It was no wonder that Madame Luo was so anxious. Because when it came to Jingwan's marriage, she always felt unsure. If it was not confirmed, her heart would always be in suspense. Although this feeling was strange, Madame Luo had to treat it seriously. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652948. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 68. Even if more than one life had been lost in the inner residence, in the eyes of those big men, it was just a small matter. If it touched on something that he cared about, he might intervene, and his methods were usually simple and crude. If he was under certain restrictions, he might even tell the truth. If he was the absolute authority in the family, then he would help whoever he favored without any principles. Even if the others were to stomp their feet in anger, they could only swallow their anger. In their eyes, the only important thing was the imperial court. Except for those who really cared about the people in the world, the rest didn't even care about their own jobs. They worked hard to curry favor with this and that, seeking for benefits for themselves and their families. They tried to climb higher and obtain supreme power. They didn't have the ability to expand the territory and seek for the title of Marquis, so they hoped to rise to a higher level by succeeding the emperor. The important thing in the imperial court today was the fire in the flower market yesterday. Because the fire was not put out in time, the whole flower market was almost destroyed and there were heavy casualties. If it was an accident, the most unlucky was probably the hidden fire army and the city defense team. But it was obvious that this was an arson case. Because there were too many corpses in the fire and it was a serious matter, after the fire was put out, the matter of apprehending the murderer was handed over to the governor, Left Fengyi, and Right Fufeng of the capital government. In less than 24 hours, even though the three of them led all the officials of the capital government day and night, they still didn't have a clue at the imperial court meeting. They didn't even know the identity of the dead. The governor's eyes were bloodshot. He knelt in the main hall and was scolded by Emperor Lu Qingdi. The governor was also helpless. The corpses were so badly burned that even the coroner couldn't see much. He didn't know whether they were burned to death or thrown into the fire after death. There were no other clues at the scene. It seemed that someone had erased the corpses. Everything pointed to the fact that someone had done it, but there was no evidence. The more it was like this, the more complicated the matter became. However, in fact, many people in the main hall actually knew the truth of the matter, but because there was no evidence, they all kept their mouths shut. Perhaps in their hearts, they had already cursed the other party's ancestors hundreds of times. That's right, the third prince, Prince Rue, believed it was the first prince, Prince Kong, and Prince Kong believed it was Prince Rue, and as a pawn, the pitiful worm, the fourth prince, Prince Gong, also believed it was one of these two, or maybe they were temporarily working together to trick him. In his heart he couldn't wait to skin these two people alive. The forces in his hands were relatively weak. This time the loss, for him, was not small. In addition to these three people, the second prince died early, the fifth prince was sick and almost didn't go out. The sixth prince Li Hongyuan was a master who didn't care about anything. Out of 10 morning court sessions, it was already good if he could attend 1 or 2 times. Now he wasn't here. The other princes who had reached the age of 16 stood in their respective positions. Whether they were secretly relying on a powerful brother, or had their own ambitions, whether they knew the inside story of this matter or not, they didn't intend to get involved. After all, if they were careless, they could get into trouble. Being pushed out as a scapegoat was light, but losing their little lives was not worth it. The people of each faction naturally weren't idle. Even if they had nothing to do with this matter, they would fabricate it. Otherwise, even if it was a trivial matter, they would use it to attack each other, digging holes for each other. If they weren't loyal to the same master on the surface and in the dark, they would do their best to make enemies. After all, the ones who suffered were only the masters on the surface. Because there were few wars, the military officials were weaker than the civil officials. However, they were a group of rough old men. Among them, Qin Tianming was the first to stand out. If there was a disagreement, he would directly use his fists. Even if he was once beaten by Lu Chengde, he didn't repent. Lu Chengde was annoyed by the quarrel. He didn't handle the business properly, and the more he talked, the more he deviated. Enough. The court, which was originally like a market, quieted down in an instant. The Ministry of Justice, the Supreme Court, together with the capital magistrate, investigate this matter together. The time limit is 3 days. If you can't give me a satisfactory result, all related personnel will be fined 3 years of salary. If there is anyone who slacks off or doesn't do his best, he will be demoted by 1 rank and go back to reflect on his mistakes for 3 months. The court session is dismissed. Lu Chengde said with a cold face and directly left. Farewell, Your Majesty. Those who didn't care about the matter cupped their hands to their colleagues and leisurely left Fengtian Hall. The Ministry of Justice, the Supreme Court, and the capital magistrate had a headache. What was this all about? The most innocent was Diwu Taiqing. As the Chancellor of the Supreme Court, he happened to be at the scene yesterday. Coincidentally, he was also neutral. No matter who the master behind the Minister of Justice and the capital magistrate were, he felt no pressure to find him. In a word, Lord Diwu, even if you didn't say anything at the scene, your investigation ability is also first class. Capable people do more work. If you need anything, just say the word. Not to mention the capital magistrate, who was a 4th-rank official, was originally lower than the Chancellor of the Supreme Court. There was nothing wrong with his flattery. However, as the Minister of Justice, you have the nerve to say such things. Diwu Taiqing looked at him coldly. Unfortunately, the other party was extremely thick-skinned and didn't feel ashamed at all. His whole face was written with, "Thank you for your trouble." Diwu Taiqing snorted coldly. It was true that he was a hard nut to crack, but he wasn't the kind of person who liked to take on everything. He knew that if this matter wasn't handled well, it wouldn't be as simple as losing his salary or being demoted. If the princes were really fighting behind his back, he might lose his life. Who would be so stupid as to take on this matter alone? Let's do our own things today. We'll gather tomorrow. It's best if it's handled well, but if it's not, we'll continue to investigate. If it's fine, everyone's fine. If there's a problem, we'll shoulder it together. Bypassing the two, he quickly caught up with Luo Peishan. Although Luo Peishan was only in the Ministry of Rights, Diwu Taiqing never underestimated his ability. He was also at the scene yesterday. If he asked him, he might be able to get more pertinent advice. When the two came to a place, Luo Peishan knew what Diwu Taiqing wanted to do. He waved his hand and stopped Diwu Taiqing from saying anything. He only said to Diwu Taiqing meaningfully, "His Majesty wants a satisfactory result." Diwu Taiqing was startled. A satisfactory result might not necessarily be the truth of the matter. Diwu Taiqing's face sank. Most likely, he couldn't give His Majesty what he wanted. So, he only needed to follow his own way of doing things and investigate the matter. It didn't matter whether he could get the result or not. In any case, for him, it was just going through the motions. His Majesty wouldn't pay attention to him. On the contrary, he was afraid that he would do something he didn't want to see. Royal brothers fighting, disregarding human life, that was a big scandal. So, at most, he would have the opportunity to lose his salary for 3 years. Thinking clearly, Diwu Taiching didn't worry anymore and went back to do what he needed to do. The Gong Prince stopped his 2 elder brothers and said with a fake smile, "2 imperial brothers, this younger brother admires you more and more." Prince Kong and Prince Rue naturally knew what he was talking about. After all, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. The Gong Prince was the unlucky cicada from the beginning. Obviously, he didn't know who was behind him. In a flash, Prince Kong and Prince Rue both thought of putting the blame on each other. Teaming up with their 4th brother, taking down the enemy, then taking down their 4th brother would be much easier. They really recognized each other as their opponents, while their 4th brother was just playing a role of balance and easing the tension between them. Prince Kang's idea was particularly prominent. After all, Prince Rue was afraid of the Gong Prince's backer, Left Governor Qin Tianming, but Prince Kong knew that the Left Governor was loyal to him. This 4th brother was just a clown, not worth mentioning. Regarding this, Prince Kong was extremely proud. Who would have thought that he himself was also a clown being played around? 4th brother. Prince Kong and Prince Rue opened their mouths almost at the same time. Then they looked at each other at the same time. It must be said that they were old rivals since childhood. Sometimes, even if they didn't completely understand each other's thoughts, they still had a 70 to 80% understanding. They didn't need to say much to know each other's intentions. Very good, now that they couldn't say anything, they could only solve it in private. Let's see who has the ability to pull their 4th brother to their side. One smiled wanton and brash, the other smiled reserved and refined. The Gong Prince was so angry that his liver hurt. These 2 people completely ignored him, completely didn't put him in their eyes. They had a tacit understanding that made him hate that he couldn't directly tear them apart. Belittling him, looking down on him? Based on what, which part of him was worse than them? Just wait and see, one day, he would ruthlessly trample them under his feet, and watch them wag their tails and beg for mercy. Listen to 4th brother's words. 4th brother's ability has always been highly praised by Imperial Father. Speaking of admiration, it's 3rd brother who admires you. Your 3rd sister-in-law has been complaining recently that she didn't have time to get close to 4th sister-in-law. 3rd brother heard that the 2 of them were as close as one person before they got married. Tonight, 3rd brother will have your 3rd sister-in-law prepare some wine. You can take 4th sister-in-law to 3rd brother's house to sit. 3rd brother still has things to do here, so I'll take my leave first. Prince Rue patted the Gong Prince's shoulder, nodded to Prince Kong, turned and left, as if he wasn't worried that Prince Kong would take this opportunity to pull the Gong Prince to his side. The Gong Prince's biggest reliance was the Yu family, so he naturally paid special attention to his princess. The Gong Qin princess could be said to be the happiest among the many princesses and Junwang consorts. Her husband doted on her, and even if there were concubines in the Gong palace, they were the least compared to the other princesses, and they didn't pose a threat to her at all. She also had her father's protection. Imperial concubine Qin Shu was her aunt, and her proper mother-in-law treated her like her own daughter. She really didn't have the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Even if there were sisters-in-law who laughed at her, her life was nothing more than a mirage. She just thought they were jealous of her. The Gong Prince's face was somewhat ugly. He could refuse other invitations, but not this one. Without waiting for Prince Kong to speak, eldest brother, younger brother will also take his leave first. The other princes walked around Prince Kong, afraid of being implicated and becoming the target of his anger. Considering his current position, Prince Kong held back his anger. If it was any other time, he could have invited Old Four in the same way, and if the other side didn't agree, he could have said, "Agree to Old Third, not eldest brother. Are you looking down on me, your eldest brother?" Unfortunately, he just lost his princess, and now was not the time for a banquet. So he could only find another opportunity, and he had to be quick. If he delayed until the evening, it would be troublesome. Li Hongming, that person, even if he couldn't make Old Four join forces with him, he would still arouse Old Four's hatred towards him. After all, the left governor was Old Four's father-in-law. Even if he didn't care about him, the left governor would have scruples about his daughter. If Old Four really made things difficult for him, it would cause a lot of trouble. Thinking about it, Prince Kong still prepared to go find his imperial mother. Li Hongming could start with the Gong Qin princess, so if his imperial mother wanted to summon her, it would be equally justified. Not long after the Gong prince left, he ran into his father-in-law Qin Tianming. "Greetings to Prince. Quickly dispense with the formalities. We're all family. Father-in-law doesn't need to be so polite. Etiquette can't be abolished. Besides, we haven't left the palace yet. Naturally we can't give Prince something to talk about." Regarding Qin Tianming's attitude, the Gong prince was very pleased. Even if he relied on him, he was still a prince, As a subject, he naturally had to be respectful. This way, when he ascended the throne in the future, even if he didn't let him take power, at least he would let the Qin family enjoy wealth and glory, and his princess consort, even if she didn't hold the phoenix seal, he would let her sit on the empress seat. It must be said that the Gong prince was still too inexperienced in Qin Tianming's eyes. What kind of mentality he had, Qin Tianming was actually very clear, and he wasn't of the same mind as the champion constabulary. In addition to family reasons, the fourth prince wasn't worthy of his assistance. With Qin Tianming as a pearl, who would look at other fish eyes? Of course, those with great ambition who wanted to hold power hoped that the master was weak and the subject was strong. At the very least, they couldn't let the person on the throne have the final say. Naturally, the one they didn't want the most was Qin Tianming, a powerful, unyielding ruler. Qin Tianming was very clear, unless it was really necessary, this son-in-law of his wouldn't discuss anything with him. He secretly raised his own advisors, and right now he was probably busy going back to find them. He said something that seemed very boring, but actually had a deep meaning. As long as this son-in-law of his wasn't stupid, he should understand what he meant. The Gong prince looked at his father-in-law's back as he left, slightly narrowing his eyes. Both sides were perfunctory, both sides wanted benefits. It really was a very good idea. "Prince, something happened in the imperial garden." A dressed eunuch hurriedly rushed to the Gong prince's side. Obviously, he was one of the Gong prince's people in the palace. "What could happen in the imperial garden?" the Gong prince said disapprovingly. The eunuch approached him and whispered a few words in his ear. The Gong prince's face became somewhat subtle. "Is this true? How could this servant dare deceive Prince? The matter is very big. The other princes, imperial concubines, and the various princesses have all gone over." The Gong prince smiled meaningfully. "Should I say, as expected of old Six, there really isn't anything he doesn't dare to do." Although he said that, the meaning behind his words was very sarcastic. "Let's go, we'll also go take a look. I want to see if Father Emperor will still cover for him this time." They had a lot of complaints about Father Emperor's indulgence of old Six. "Prince, wouldn't that be bad? After all, this matter is related to His Majesty's face." The Gong prince's attendant said. "What are you afraid of? So many people have gone. The so-called law can't punish the majority. Can Father Emperor punish us all?" When the Gong prince arrived, the imperial garden was really crowded, but other than the center of the incident, the rest of the people were very quiet. But although it was quiet, they all had different expressions. Some were disdainful, some were gloating, some were watching with cold eyes. Of course, there were a few people who looked particularly worried, as if they were disappointed in him, but they couldn't ignore him. Li Hongyuan faced the furious Lu Qingdi, even more indifferent than when he angered Lu Qingdi in the past, his head slightly bowed, his hand playing with a piece of warm jade. His old man's roar was even louder than the wind blowing past his ears, because he was already distracted, thinking about what happened last night. There was a group of people kneeling next to him, and the woman in the lead was wearing a palace dress, beautiful and moving, but at this time she was crying pitifully. "Evil creature, are you listening to Zhen?" Lu Qingdi was angry, and kicked him. Who was Li Hongyuan? Even if he was distracted, it was just a subconscious reaction, and he easily dodged. "You still dare to dodge?" Li Hongyuan took 2 steps forward and continued to kick, but the result was the same. After repeating this several times, Lu Qingdi was tired and panting, but he couldn't even touch the corner of Li Hongyuan's clothes. "Sixth brother, How can you be like this? Stop quickly. Perhaps he finally couldn't stand it anymore. Prince Kong shouted, and hurriedly stepped forward, trying to stop Li Hongyuan. With him taking the lead, many people rushed forward, but whether they wanted to stop them and persuade Lu Qingdi, or take advantage of this opportunity to retaliate against Li Hongyuan, only they themselves knew. Li Hongyuan sneered. No matter how many people came forward, and no matter what they wanted to do, he didn't fight back, he just narrowly avoided them, intentionally or unintentionally leading them, including Lu Qingdi, who was inadvertently hit. For a time, the scene was abnormally chaotic, but all of them were of noble status. The guards didn't dare to step forward. If any of them were hurt, they would lose their heads. The most unlucky ones were the group of people kneeling next to them. Because most of them were women, they screamed and hurriedly dodged, messing up their hair, messing up their clothes, and looking very embarrassed. In the end, it was the Empress who came out to calm the scene. What are you waiting for? Pull your masters away. Are you all dead? Their personal attendants braved the danger of being beaten, hurriedly hugged their masters, and used all their strength to pull them away. The Empress took this opportunity to walk to Lu Qingdi, and whispered, "Your Majesty, calm down first. Even if Old Sixth did something wrong, you are his father, you can just teach him a lesson. Why do you have to do it yourself? It will be a joke." Imperial concubine Su trembled with anger. What did she mean by just teach him a lesson? It was natural for the father to teach his son a lesson, not to mention the father was the emperor. But the Empress clearly meant to let the guards do it. The emperor was angry and ordered the guards to do it. Naturally, they didn't dare to be merciful, and the consequences were unimaginable. She stepped forward and knelt straight in front of Lu Qingdi. "Your Majesty, your Honor's daily behavior may occasionally be a little out of line, but he won't do such a disgraceful thing. There may be some misunderstanding, Your Majesty." Then she turned back and stared at Li Hongyuan. "Why don't you kneel down and explain to your father?" Li Hongyuan saw the obvious worry in her eyes, changed his previous indifference, frowned, and walked forward. "Mother, get up first." "Yuan, get up first." Li Hongyuan insisted. Imperial concubine Su was helpless. She glanced at Lu Qingdi and saw that he didn't say anything, so she had to get up. Li Hongyuan knelt down unhurriedly. "Father, if you're still angry, you can kick me now. Even if you kick me to death, I won't move." This wasn't an admission of fault, nor an explanation. It was clearly adding fuel to the fire. Lu Qingdi subconsciously raised his foot, but he thought of something and restrained himself. But his face was uglier than before, and his back teeth were grinding. "You evil creature, you still don't want to admit your fault, do you? Father, didn't I just take liberties with a woman? Do you need to be so angry? I thought you were used to it. Didn't you just take liberties with a woman? She's my woman, your concubine mother." Lu Qingdi roared. It was unknown whether Lu Qingdi was really mad or he was too lazy to cover up what Li Hongyuan had done. Anyway, those who should know already knew. He had no intention of evacuating the crowd. Instead, he pointed out the core of the matter with one sentence. Since he didn't care, Li Hongyuan didn't care either. She really has the self-awareness of a concubine mother. When she saw me, she should have avoided me automatically instead of coming up to me and saluting me shyly. She obviously wants to cheat on me. If I don't help her, won't I fail to live up to the beauty's grace? Besides, this son only moved his lips and didn't even touch a single finger of hers. In just a few words, she turned around and acted as if this son would do anything to her in public. Lu Qingdi's face turned black. Was it his son who took the initiative to take liberties with his concubine, or was it his concubine who seduced his son first? These were two completely different natures. The latter was more infuriating than the former. Even if he had been taking good care of himself, he was an old man after all. Whether it was his appearance or his physical strength, he was old. His son was young and strong, and he had a good appearance that few women could refuse. Even if he was the emperor and could have anything he wanted, sometimes he couldn't help but be jealous. His woman was eyeing his son because he couldn't take it anymore? Extraordinary shame and humiliation. Lu Qingdi was like a ferocious beast on the verge of death. He turned his head and stared at the disheveled concubine. It was as if she had just been caught in the act of adultery. Lu Chengdi's eyes revealed an ominous glint, as if he would pounce on her and bite her to death in the next moment. That woman trembled in fear. "Emperor, Emperor, it's not like this, it's not like this. You must believe this concubine, it's Jin Qin Wang. The beauties in Fu Huang's palace are like clouds, the beauties in Urchin's other courtyard are also not few. Taking away their status, in terms of appearance, urchins seem to be better. To a Ken, they are just playthings. Who would care about their status?" Li Hongyuan indifferently said, and then faintly glanced at that palace concubine. "Just this appearance, just this figure, just this vulgar self-restraint, it's not enough for a Ken to take the initiative to take a fancy to her. A Ken is very suspicious, whether or not someone is deliberately framing a Ken. Asking Fu Huang to investigate clearly and make a decision for a Ken. Just look at what he was saying. He still didn't take a fancy to her? Then as her father, he had pampered this woman for several months and promoted her again and again. Wasn't he blind and tasteless? Lu Qingdi's chest rapidly moved up and down, but it was probably because he was angered by Li Hongyuan every few days. Although he was angry, he appeared to be in high spirits and didn't show any problems. Concubine Li will be demoted to the last rank, banished to the cold palace, never to return. Take her away. Emperor, Emperor, don't, Emperor. It's not like this, you can't do this to... Woo woo woo. Concubine Li, who was struggling to pounce forward, was caught by the chamberlains. Then her mouth was gagged, so as not to startle His Majesty and be dragged away. And those palace servants who were originally serving her, like quails, shrunk into a ball, afraid that His Majesty would take his anger out on them. They didn't have such a good life to enter the cold palace. The biggest possibility was that they would be directly beaten to death. They wished they could find a hole to burrow into. No one was surprised by Concubine Li's ending. Even if the responsibility wasn't on her, with things like this, she couldn't continue to be pampered endlessly. And in these few months, Concubine Li relied on His Majesty's favor to make the other palace concubines look bad. Even when facing the Empress, noble consort Su, and the other most powerful women in the imperial harem, she dared to be perfunctory. The Empress and the others knew that she wouldn't have a good ending, so they didn't pay attention to her. The others were so angry that they stomped their feet. Now that they were suddenly trampled into the mud, they clapped their hands and cheered, but at the same time, they felt inexplicably sad. They all knew what kind of person Lu Chengdi was. It was said that emperors were heartless, and he was very good at this. Only a few people knew that he once had feelings, but with that woman's death, his feelings were buried. Everyone was more concerned about how Lu Chengdi would deal with Li Hongyuan. He was too hateful. Even if they didn't have any conflicts with him, they hated his arrogance and domineering attitude. Naturally, they didn't want him to be well. Your Majesty, even if Concubine Li was in the wrong first, Jin Qin Wang just went with the flow and took liberties with Concubine Li. This is disgraceful and heresy. Normally, there is no reason for a son to take liberties with his father's concubine. That is a breach of virtue, a breach of contract, and should be severely punished by law. One of the palace concubines walked past the Empress and the 4 concubines to take the initiative to speak. What she said was reasonable, but the hatred in her eyes when she looked at Li Hongyuan was too obvious. Su Guifei tilted her head and glanced at her. She knew why this woman hated Yuan. When Yuana was 7 or 8 years old, he knocked away the male fetus in her belly, causing her body to be damaged and unable to conceive again. She was able to live peacefully until now. Other than the emperor compensating her by promoting her to a concubine position, she herself wasn't a threat. She didn't expect that the person who had been silent all this time would bear a grudge until now and still want to take the opportunity to take revenge. Li Hongyuan also raised his head and glanced at that palace concubine, but he didn't have any impression. He had offended and dealt with so many people, where would he have the mind to remember each and every one of them in his heart? Retracting his gaze, he said, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally, "For a beauty, it's better to be older." The palace concubine who spoke paled and tightened her handkerchief. No matter how much hatred she had in her heart, she didn't dare to speak again. Li Hongyuan wasn't a stingy person. With concubine Li in front of him, what he said now was a full threat. He was a person who wasn't afraid of anything and could do anything, but others couldn't, especially these concubines. If their reputations were tarnished, they would be left in the cold at best, or die suddenly. Moreover, he wasn't a fool. He didn't need to do it himself. It would be too easy for him to find a guard or even a chamberlain to destroy them. Based on the emperor's infinite indulgence towards him, no matter how severe the punishment was, it wouldn't take his life. As for the people involved, those that could be killed would be killed. Those that couldn't be killed would be strictly ordered by the emperor to keep their mouths shut. Like this, who would dare to fight to the death with this living king of hell? It was said that there were only wrong names, but there were no wrong nicknames. Living king of hell, he really was a living king of hell. Yuan, you're still talking nonsense. Shut up. Imperial concubine Su sternly shouted, but her eyes were filled with worry. Li Hongyuan, who had been unconcerned from beginning to end, softened his gaze because of her words. The sharpness around him also lessened a lot. At least he didn't feel as arrogant and unrepentant as before. He also obediently shut his mouth and didn't speak again. Imperial concubine Su seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Your Majesty, Yuan grew up by this concubine's side. Like Ming and Min Xiang, he is this concubine's flesh and blood. Regardless of whether they are good or bad, this is a fact that cannot be changed. If they are outstanding, this concubine will naturally be happy. But if they do something wrong, this concubine will also bear half of the responsibility. This concubine will naturally bear half of their punishment. Please be lenient. Lu Chengdi's expression softened. You are, what can I say about you? It's because you blindly indulged him that he became more and more lawless. When he was young, you could be harsh on him, but after he grew up, I haven't seen you say a single harsh word to him. That's different. When I was young, I was more strict and could correct the bad things in their bodies. Now, this concubine can't just watch them suffer. Isn't that cutting this concubine's heart? It's probably because this concubine doesn't know how to teach children. None of the three of them are easy to worry about. Imperial concubine Su said helplessly. My dear concubine, you're wrong. We've seen how you've raised your child. You can't be blamed for his current state. He's naturally irritable and bad-tempered. It's not like we don't know that you've spent more effort on him than third brother and Min Xiang. As for Min Xiang, she occasionally has a small temper. This concubine also likes her. Ordinary families pay attention to pampering their daughters, not to mention our imperial family's princess. Not to mention Ming, This concubine is very satisfied with him. Ming was mediocre before this mission. Now that your Majesty is satisfied, it's because your Majesty has taught him well. Hearing this, Lu Chengdi was overjoyed. He laughed loudly and didn't look angry at all. Their harmonious appearance made many people secretly grit their teeth. Especially when Lu Chengdi said, this concubine is very satisfied with him. Was it just a casual remark or did it have other intentions? Your Majesty, then Yuan. With Li Hongyuan's threat, even the Empress was quite afraid. She wasn't afraid that he would do something to her. No matter how presumptuous Li Hongyuan was, he wouldn't be so stupid. She was afraid that he would use other methods to vent his anger on her son and ruin the marriage between her son and her niece. The Empress didn't dare to underestimate his destructive power. Therefore, she didn't dare to say anything at this time. In your opinion, my beloved concubine, how should we deal with this bastard? Your Majesty, after a few days. Why not let Yuan stay at White Dragon Temple for a few days, abstain from eating mushroom vegetarian food, and let the monks watch over him? It can be considered a small punishment. What does your Majesty think? Lu Chengdi's face changed slightly and returned to normal in a flash, as my beloved concubine says. A group of people who were waiting for Li Hongyuan to be unlucky all had black faces. This kind of big mistake was over just like that? Abstaining from eating mushroom vegetarian food for a period of time could also be considered a punishment? What was the difference between this and reflecting on one's mistakes behind closed doors? However, since Lu Chengdi agreed, there was no room for others to interfere. Even if this matter was known to everyone, it couldn't be brought to court. Daring to mention something that made Lu Chengdi lose face, "You think you're as bold as Jin Qinhuang? Think you're as forgiving as Jin Qinhuang? Dream on." Li Hongyuan was greedy for beauty and enjoyment. Coming to a Buddhist place, there were all kinds of rules and precepts. This could be considered a severe punishment for him. Those who were unbalanced could only comfort themselves like this. "Bastard, immediately roll to White Dragon Temple. Don't return without an imperial decree." Aken obeys the decree. Not waiting for Lu Chengdi to call him up, he slowly stood up. That appearance made Lu Chengdi want to slap him again, but no matter what, he was indifferent. To put it bluntly, he was a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. In the end, the one who was angry was only himself. "What are you still standing here for? Do you all have nothing to do? Get lost for Zhen." Such obvious anger. All the people who were watching the play immediately acted as if they had something important to do. One by one, they asked to leave and even voluntarily sealed their mouths. "You bastard, you still haven't gotten lost. The one that Zhen doesn't want to see the most right now is you." Aken has something to say to Mu Fei. "Fu Huang still has political affairs that haven't been finished, right?" The implication was, still not leaving. In the end, Lu Chengdi couldn't take it anymore. He ruthlessly gave Li Hongyuan a kick before leaving in a huff. Li Hongyuan looked at the footprint on the corner of his clothes and frowned. It wasn't because of pain, but purely because he found it dirty. Noble consort Su naturally squatted down and used her handkerchief to wipe away the footprint. It was like she had fallen down when she was young and was helped up. Then, she would personally wipe away the dust on her clothes and comfort her with gentle words. Li Hongyuan's expression was slightly strange. He took a step back. "Mu Fei." Noble consort Su stood up straight and looked at him kindly. "What's wrong? This kind of thing is done by the palace servants. How could I trouble you to do it personally? Mu Fei is used to it. If you don't like it, Mu Fei will pay more attention in the future." "It's not that I don't like it. Aken just..." Li Hongyuan paused, as if he didn't know how to continue. "You just love Mu Fei. Mu Fei knows. You are, don't make your Fu Huang angry. Naturally, he won't do anything to you. Then, these things wouldn't have happened. What happened today? Mu Fei believes that you won't be so willful and rash. Even if concubine Li's behavior was improper first, you wouldn't go near her for no reason. There were so many people just now, but you didn't want to say it. Now, can you tell Mu Fei?" Noble consort Su said warmly. Li Hongyuan's face was cold, and he didn't want to speak. "Noble consort, Master saw concubine Li being disrespectful to you a few days ago, so... shut up." Li Hongyuan coldly interrupted Eunuch Mu. Noble consort Su was stunned. Tears quickly welled up in her eyes, and she felt very touched. You're really... Mu Fei." Li Hongyuan frowned, and his face became colder. However, anyone could see that he didn't know how to comfort noble consort Su. Because he was at a loss, he appeared even colder. Noble consort Su wiped away the tears that didn't fall and smiled happily. "Others say that my son is bad. How could they know that my son is the most filial and considerate? But Yuan, don't do such things that will damage your reputation in the future. Mu Fei has been in this harem for more than 20 years. Concubine Li is just a little girl who is spoiled and arrogant. Mu Fei has seen too much of it. Mu Fei doesn't take her seriously. Mu Fei knows what your Fu Huang is thinking. He's just greedy for a moment of novelty. It won't last long. Mu Fei, don't listen to Mu An's nonsense. I'm just doing it on a whim." Noble consort Su saw that he didn't admit it, so she didn't say anything else. But her expression clearly said, "Mu Fei knows that Yuan is shy. Yuan, when you go to White Dragon Temple this time, you can stay there peacefully for a while. Although it's a vegetarian fast, the vegetarian dishes in White Dragon Temple are famous for being delicious. Before Mu Fei entered the palace, she often went out to eat vegetarian dishes. In addition, copy Buddhist scriptures when you have nothing to do. Just treat it as praying for your Fu Huang. Don't cause any trouble. That's a sacred place of Buddhism. If you touch something that you shouldn't touch, I'm afraid your Fu Huang will really be angry. Listen to Mu Fei this time and be patient for a while, okay? Li Hongyuan paused. Mu Fei, don't worry. Mu Fei, I understand. That's good. Noble consort Su knew that as long as it was something he promised her, there was nothing he couldn't do. In that case, I'll take my leave first. I don't know how long it will take for me to come back. Mu Fei, take care. Don't worry. Your Fu Huang won't let you stay in White Dragon Temple for too long, noble consort Su said meaningfully. He thought that she would find an opportunity to plead with Lu Qingdi. Li Hongyuan nodded indifferently. He didn't care about it at all. I'll take my leave. Once Li Hongyuan was far away, the mama by noble consort Su's side said, "This mother and son are truly mother and son. No one can compare to them. No matter how Prince behaves outside, in front of noble consort Su, he is still the same as when he was young. Yes, Yuan is actually very smart. He gave up a lot because of me and Ming noble consort Su whispered. Li Hongming, Prince Rui, stood behind a tree not far away, watching and listening silently. Then he left expressionlessly. Only he knew what he was thinking. As they walked further and further away, the cold aura around Li Hongyuan became stronger and stronger. Eunuch Mu followed behind him, not daring to breathe loudly. Last night, he said that he would go to White Dragon Temple to rest for a while, and today he achieved his goal. It seemed that he had a plan. It was so easy to achieve what he wanted, and it was killing two birds with one stone. He should be happy. But looking at him, his mood was worse than before he went to the Luo family. After thinking about it, Eunuch Mu realized that the problem might be caused by noble consort Su. They all knew that his master was ambitious for the throne and was determined to get it. So, he secretly set up a big trap. Maybe it was because he felt ashamed to face noble consort Su, who raised him up. Or was it that master and noble consort Su were not as close as they seemed on the surface? As for what was going on, master didn't mention it, nor did he express it clearly. No matter how hard Eunuch Mu thought about it, it was useless. However, he didn't need to waste his time to speculate on this matter. Leaving the palace, before Li Hongyuan got on the carriage, he looked at the majestic palace and thought of noble consort Su's last instructions. The punishment was fake, the praying for blessings was real. As for the object of the praying, naturally, it couldn't be touched by something that shouldn't be touched. That was the taboo in his good imperial father's heart. No matter how much he indulged him, if he stepped on his bottom line, he would incur his thunderous wrath. However, even if he had completely broken all the precepts of the Buddhist sect, you still need to know about it. Returning to Jin Qin Wang Fu, because they were already prepared, they quickly packed up their things and didn't make a big fuss. After all, a dignified Qin Wang being punished was not a glorious thing. When Gong Mama received the things from the shadow guards, she trembled with anger. It wasn't easy for her to calm down. Turning around, she had no choice but to find her Mississippi. Miss, the peach blossoms in White Dragon Temple have bloomed. Do you want to go take a look? The peach forest in White Dragon Temple is very large. Every time it blooms, it is especially beautiful. In the entire capital, you can't find a better peach forest. Digression. On the first day it was published, it was updated 10,000 times. Thank you, dear friends, for your support. However, because the author needs to take care of the baby, the little guy who is not even 2 years old is very naughty. He causes trouble all day long and also doesn't know how to be obedient. Therefore, the time to write is very little. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652949 HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bikan.com. Biku Gur mobile reading website, bikan.com. Chapter 69. Is that so? Then I'll definitely feast my eyes on it. Jingwan was obviously very interested. She thought for a moment and said, I'll invite Sister Jia, Cousin Yuan, and Ingshuang. The more the merrier. I'll send them the invitation right away. Jingwan wasn't a person who would drag her feet and act on her words. Granny Gong hoped that she would refuse. If she did, then the King of Hell wouldn't blame them for not doing a good job. Unfortunately, this excuse just happened to poke at the young lady's weak spot. She once again helped the tyrant do evil. She sighed in her heart. Young lady, you're so excited, but you're taking the initiative to walk into the wolf's den, into the tiger's mouth. Jingwan said as she wrote the invitation, when you go and report to grandmother, you might as well ask her if she wants to go together. Grandmother has been away from the capital for so many years. She must miss a lot of places in the capital. You're so filial. With Madame Luo around, it was perfectly justifiable for her to keep the girl by her side. Naturally, she wouldn't easily be left alone. If the King of Hell wanted to make a move, he would have to think twice. Although Mama Gong didn't think that he could be stopped as long as there were more people, she could only comfort herself with this. This has nothing to do with filial piety. I'm just putting myself in grandmother's shoes and thinking about it. I think she would probably be like that. Jingwan finished writing the invitation and brought it directly to the main courtyard. She suggested going to White Dragon Temple to play and burn incense. Madame Luo naturally didn't disagree. She didn't have anything to do for the time being and didn't care much about the peach forest in White Dragon Temple. What she missed more was the vegetarian food in White Dragon Temple. It's been so many years. I'm afraid the cooks have changed long ago. I wonder if the taste is still the same. As the saying goes, take the essence and discard the dregs. Maybe the taste will be better. Jingwan said with a smile. Wanwan is right. Who knows, it might be even better. When are you and your close friends going to meet? Tomorrow. When it comes to flowers and plants, you're always so impatient. Madame Luo pointed at her in the air. Granddaughter only has that little hobby. Jingwan did not feel that there was anything wrong with this at all. If grandmother feels that it is not appropriate, we can delay it. Anyway, the invitation has not been sent out yet. Although she was eager to see the beautiful scenery, it was not impossible to wait for 1 or 2 more days. No need, just tomorrow. Madame Luo directly asked the person beside her to send the invitation. Then, Jingwan thought of another question. Grandmother, do you want to ask the other sisters if they want to go together? She didn't think of them in the beginning. Was it not good? Jingwan began to reflect on herself. After all, she was no longer in Qi and Prefecture. She was not the only girl who needed to go out from time to time. Moreover, there was no freedom in the capital. There's no need. They've been in the capital for a long time. They've seen what they should see and played what they should play. Maybe they've already been there when the peach blossoms first bloomed. I'll get someone to ask your 4th aunt later. Okay, I'll listen to grandmother. If she could not go with Luo Jingying, Jingwan was naturally more than happy. The invitation that Jingwan sent out quickly received replies. They were all sent back by the person in charge of sending the invitation. They all said that they wanted to go. The fastest belonged to Sun Yijia, who was of the highest status. According to common sense, the invitation sent to Dinggua Manor would only be received the next day. However, Sun Yijia returned home yesterday and told the gatekeeper that if there were people from the Luo Shongshu Manor looking for her or sending her an invitation, he should directly lead them to her place. Therefore, Sun Yijia directly met the servants of the Luo family. After receiving Jingwan's invitation, she was naturally very happy. Not to mention going to White Dragon Temple to admire the flowers, even if it was to look at the weeds in the suburbs, she would be happy. She immediately replied and said that she would go to the Luo manor as soon as possible tomorrow. The other two families were not so complicated or troublesome. In addition, it was the people of the Luo family. The gatekeepers of the two families did not dare to neglect and smoothly met the person. Jing Wan had just finalized the trip here. On the other side, Li Hongyuan had almost arrived at White Dragon Temple. What Li Hongyuan did in the flower market could be said to be ruthless, involving more than half of the officials in the capital. On the surface, none of the most powerful princes were able to escape unscathed. Not only that, but it also caused another fierce fight among them, causing them to suspect each other. And as the main culprit, after stirring up the water, not only did he clap his hands and walk away, no one even suspected him. Those who vaguely guessed that it might be his doing did not say a word, no matter how emotional they were in their hearts. They just repeatedly warned themselves that if they followed such a master, even if their room to display their abilities was reduced a lot, and they might even become a person who only needed to do things and not talk, they should not have any disloyalty. Hidden in the woods at the side, Li Hongyuan looked at the magnificent temple that was filled with Buddhist incense. His thoughts drifted. White Dragon Temple was a temple of the imperial family. Except for a few special days, it was also open to the common people. Thus, it was full of incense all year round. In addition, its abbot, Master Liaochen, was one of the most eminent monks in the world. Master Liaochen's fortune-telling was very accurate. However, he could only tell at most 3 trigrams a year, and it had to be a fated person. Otherwise, not even the emperor could make him make an exception. For some people, the so-called fated person was someone that the other party found pleasing to the eye. But Master Liaochen wasn't like that. He didn't care about high or low status. He didn't even need to rely on his eyes to determine whether someone was fated or not. Every year, countless people hoped to become the fated person that Master Liaochen spoke of. Not only did they want to know their own fate, but they also hoped that Master Liaochen could change it. That's right. Rumor had it that Master Liaochen's greatest ability was to defy the heavens and change people's fates. No one knew where this rumor came from, but the world firmly believed it. It wasn't that there weren't any influential people who wanted to force Master Liaochen to change his fate. However, that person died an unnatural death not long after. That person had been criticized by several masters at the same time. Although the road to life was bumpy, it was a sign of longevity. But he hadn't even reached 30 when he died. For a time, those who were itching to make a move kept quiet out of fear. They all treated Master Liaochen with respect. It was good to have him tell their fortunes or give them a few pointers, but they couldn't and wouldn't force it. However, Master Liaochen had a few rules. It wasn't about the fate of the nation, the near future, or the distant future. The affairs of the nation were easy to understand. The near future referred to things that would happen in a very short time. The world was ever-changing. Things that were close at hand were difficult to change even if one could predict them. The distant future referred to things that wouldn't happen in 100 years. The distant future was too distant to be divined. It couldn't be divined. Master Liaochen wasn't an elusive person. Although he left the capital from time to time, he wouldn't be completely untraceable. Even if an important person or someone special wanted to see him and listen to the teachings of Buddhism, he wouldn't avoid them because of his status. Li Hongyuan and Master Liaochen could be considered old acquaintances. Not only in this life, but in his previous life as well. During his years on the throne, if Master Liaochen hadn't comforted him from time to time, he would have been even more vicious and killed even more people. His reputation as a tyrant would have spread far beyond the imperial court. In this life, when he left the palace at the age of 16, the first thing he did was find Master Liaochen. He didn't say much, only one thing. Can this prince get what he wants? No one knew if Master Liaochen had seen through him. He only said, "Your Highness's obsession is like a demon. Will your Highness give up even if I say no?" "No." The mischievous Li Hongyuan's answer was straightforward. "In that case, what's the point of caring about whether I can or can't? You'll know when the time comes." From then on, Li Hongyuan stopped asking and didn't ask Master Liaochen to tell his fortune. Occasionally, he would come to the master to play chess, drink tea, or discuss the teachings of Buddhism. In fact, Li Hongyuan was well versed in the teachings of Buddhism, but he had always been dismissive of it. He'd even criticized it as worthless in front of Master Liaochen. Master Liaochen would only smile and say nothing. When Li Hongyuan finished, he'd laugh and say, "Your Highness understands the teachings of Buddhism, so you can find other ways to refute it." In return, Li Hongyuan snorted coldly. Li Hongyuan only had eunuch Mu with him. After standing there for about 15 minutes, they went directly to the rear courtyard of White Dragon Temple without attracting any attention. Master Liaochen was already waiting there with a group of people. He was dressed in a monk's robe and had a benevolent countenance. He had a long white beard and looked quite old. However, his complexion was ruddy and his eyes were not as cloudy as an ordinary old man's. Instead, they were as clear as a baby's. It was incredible. However, just by looking at you with those eyes, it seemed to be able to make you calm down quickly. Master Liaochen put his palms together. "This poor monk greets your highness." The monks behind him followed suit. "Master, there's no need to be so courteous." Li Hongyuan returned the greeting. Compared to when he had left the Li Palace, he was now like a completely different person, a world of difference. The group went directly to Li Hongyuan's small courtyard. They pushed open one of the side rooms. It was clean and simple, filled with a fragrant aroma. Naturally, the incense burning there was the best quality of sandalwood. Li Hongyuan and Master Liaochen sat on opposite sides of a short table. The novice monk quickly served them tea. This was a tea unique to White Dragon Temple. It was grown from a several hundred-year-old tea tree, and only a small amount was produced each year. More importantly, Master Liaochen was in charge of everything from the picking of the tea to the final product. Perhaps because of this, he was tainted with a hint of Buddhist nature. In his previous life, after Li Hongyuan became emperor, he domineeringly took all the tea for himself. Fortunately, Master Liaochen was magnanimous and didn't argue with him. If he wanted it, he would give it to him. Li Hongyuan looked at the faint smoke rising from the cup. The tea had a unique taste. It was bitter, then sweet. After swallowing the tea, his mouth would be filled with a sweet fragrance. It was truly memorable. More importantly, it had the effect of calming the mind. "Your Highness seems to be in a good mood," said Master Liaochen. "Master, you have sharp eyes." "Of course I can't hide anything from you," replied Li Hongyuan unconcernedly. "Your Highness will get what you want," said Master Liaochen. His words didn't seem stiff at all. Li Hongyuan paused, then raised his head. "After 6 years, why are you suddenly bringing this up again? Compared to before, Grandmaster's attitude is poles apart. Your Highness will get what you want. It is the fortune of the world. Master, you're too serious. Your Highness should know that this humble monk's words are not empty." Li Hongyuan had been haunted by his obsession. Now that he had gotten what he wanted, his obsession was gone. His heart was at ease, and everything was at peace. If his obsession didn't disappear, the more time passed, the deeper his inner demons would grow. Moreover, he held great power in his hands. Who knew what kind of storms he would stir up? The ones who would suffer would naturally be the innocent. Perhaps he would lose his reason one day, or perhaps he would let himself do whatever he wanted. It was hard to say whether he wouldn't cause misery and suffering. Although he didn't want a crumbling empire, that was because he wanted to have time to enjoy himself with Jingwan. If Jingwan couldn't get what he wanted, he would naturally have plenty of time. Perhaps the more chaotic the world was, the happier he would be. That way, he would have something to pass the time. Compared to his previous life, this was undoubtedly even worse. "Then dare I ask, Master, was this prince able to get what he wanted all along, or were you prepared to change this prince's fate? 6 years ago, it was still like looking at flowers in the fog. There were many uncertainties, but your Highness' actions opened up a path. So, as expected, everything depends on effort. She will come to White Dragon Temple in a few days. Master, you should take a look. Your Highness wants this monk to read the girl's fate. Everything will be done according to Master's rules." This prince won't insist. It's rare for the words won't insist to come from your highness's mouth. When it comes to her, this prince won't insist. Master, you should know the reason. Master Liaochen nodded. Your highness's original intentions have never changed. You don't care about other things, good or bad. There was a light knock on the door. Master, the old benefactor at the foot of the mountain requests an audience. It was the crisp voice of a child. Amitabha, master understands. Go and ask the old benefactor to wait for a moment. Then he looked at Li Hongyuan with clear and kind eyes. Your Highness, please do as you wish. This poor monk will be back soon. Li Hongyuan glanced at him. You're still the same as before, pretending to be benevolent. You can abandon this prince for a commoner. If you want to leave, then leave. You don't have to come again today. This prince can enjoy some peace and quiet. It sounded like he was angry at Master Liaochen's neglect. After all, his words were no longer respectful. But in reality, Master Liaochen was special to him, so he was relatively lenient. Amitabha, it's all because your highness is benevolent. If your highness didn't allow it, this monk wouldn't have acted so boldly. Old monk, you've learned how to be glib? Monks don't lie. Li Hongyuan sneered. Don't use the word benevolent on this prince. This prince's heart and lungs are all black. Don't taint it. Master Liaochen was still compassionate. He smiled warmly. This monk is never wrong. Li Hongyuan couldn't be bothered to pay him any more attention. After Master Liaochen left, Li Hongyuan stood up and walked to the window. Eunuch Mu pushed it open first. Because White Dragon Temple was an imperial temple, there were naturally places where ordinary people couldn't enter. This small courtyard was more unique. It was secluded, quiet, and not too far away. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't attract much attention. Li Hongyuan liked this room because he could see the entire peach forest behind the mountain when he opened the window. The view was unusually wide, and the peach blossoms were truly beautiful. Master, Miss Luo and the others will come to White Dragon Temple tomorrow. Eunuch Mu did his job as a lackey. The competition among eunuchs was fierce. There were only so many masters, and few of them were doing well. There were countless people with cheap lives. No matter who stood out a little, there would always be a large group of eunuchs keeping an eye on you. They weren't there to prevent you from making mistakes, but to expect you to make mistakes. Just like in other places, there were endless schemes and tricks. One careless mistake and you could be pulled down. Last night, because he didn't guess the real purpose of his master's visit to White Dragon Temple in time, he was almost demoted. Therefore, Eunuch Mu was doubly alert. He had to let his master know that he was irreplaceable. Even if his master had a bad temper, and following him was like hanging one's head on one's waist sometimes, it was better than being trampled into the mud by others. Moreover, there were two sides to everything. When his master was in a bad mood, he should think more about his good. Li Hongyuan wasn't surprised. Based on Wan Wan's infatuation, it was already too late for her to wait until tomorrow. Who's coming? Eunuch Mu named the people invited by Jing Wan one by one, and then the people of the Luo family who would accompany them. Li Hongyuan's expression was indifferent. No matter how many people came, they could not stop his plan from being carried out. He had been hiding in the dark all this time. Naturally, he was not satisfied. Even if he could not have intimate behavior openly, at least he had to let Wan Wan know him first. When they met as strangers in the bridal chamber, he would waste 1 or 2 years of beautiful time. How stupid would he be to do that? Go and get a jar of 6-year-old peach blossom wine. Yes. Therefore, the rules and precepts of Buddhism were really nothing for Li Hongyuan. Whether he broke or kept the precepts, it was all up to him. Everyone thought that Li Hongyuan enjoyed life and couldn't bear the slightest hardship. However, after he ascended the throne in his previous life, he lost too much because of the fight for the throne. At first, he didn't have any available talents, so he went to war himself. For a period of time, because of the defeat on the battlefield, as the emperor, he lived in the open. Li Hongyuan didn't make a sound. The hardship in the temple was nothing to him. Of course, Li Hongyuan wouldn't go too far. It didn't matter if he drank a little wine and ate a little meat. He wouldn't break the precepts of lust, unless Wan Wan took the initiative to make him break it. However, according to his understanding of Wan Wan, even if they were in love and even got married, she wouldn't agree to mess around here. Just thinking about that scene made him particularly want to have a try. Maybe because of the taboo, Wan Wan would have an unexpected reaction. Li Hongyuan's eyes became somewhat gloomy. He even licked his lips. That appearance was particularly tempting and frightening. Mu Gonggong dug out a jar of wine from under the tree under the eyes of the monks in the courtyard. The 4 monks were all like wooden pillars, not even lifting their eyelids. When Li Hongyuan was 16 years old, he went to Bai Long Temple to get countless peach blossoms to brew wine and directly buried it in the courtyard. He said that this would make the wine more mellow and delicious. After that, once a year, more than half of the courtyard's underground space was filled with wine. However, no one said anything because it was permitted by the abbot. According to Master Liaochen, Jin Qinhuang's status was noble. There was no need to care about such a small matter. It seemed to show that he was also a layman who would bow his head to the powerful. But when he said this, if his expression wasn't as compassionate as usual, perhaps it would have been a bit believable. Those who knew about it all believed that if it was anyone else, even if it was the emperor, Master Liaochen would have refused. Unfortunately, except for Li Hongyuan, this living king of hell who deviated from the orthodoxy, there was probably no one who would do such a thing. So some people hoped that he couldn't bear the hardship of breaking the precepts and would be beaten by the upright and plain-spoken monks. Naturally, they were disappointed. Just as he said, if they wanted to find fault with him, they first had to know what he had done. More than one person secretly used tricks to make the eunuchs who went to Bai Long Temple to deliver the oral message to hurry up and arrange everything before Li Hongyuan arrived. As a result, there were a lot of monks inside and outside the courtyard, but they were all decorations for some people in the imperial palace to see or to play the role of guards. Eunuch Mu patted the clay to clean the edges of the wine jar and the outside. He took out the wine cup from the secret compartment in the wing room and washed it, ready to pour wine for Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan waved his hand, reached out to pick up the wine jar, and directly raised his head to drink. Part of the wine slid down the sides, down the neck, into the collar, and disappeared. Gradually, the color of the clothes darkened. It was obvious that the clothes were soaked and stuck to the skin. Even if he wore more than one layer, the lines of his chest and the rolling of his throat could be seen clearly. Eunuch Mu secretly regretted. Fortunately, there were no women here. After finishing the wine jar, Li Hongyuan casually threw it through the window into the courtyard with a bang. Li Hongyuan was still sitting steadily. There was no redness on his face, as if he wasn't drunk at all. He even said, "Mu en, have the kitchen cook 2 vegetarian dishes and quickly send them back to the imperial palace for noble consort Su. As long as I'm in Bai Long Temple, I can't rest." Noble consort Su said that she missed the vegetarian dishes in Bai Long Temple, so his master sent them back to her? Such filial piety. But his master called her noble consort Su, not mother. Stop. Yes. Li Hongyuan walked to the side of the hard Kong bed and sat down. He slowly closed his eyes and his body went limp. He propped himself up with one hand and laid down flat. His breathing soon became light and long, as if he had already fallen asleep. Eunuch Mu was lucky to taste the peach blossom wine once. It didn't taste strong and even had the fragrance of peach blossoms, which was more in line with women's preferences. But it was very strong. He drank the whole jar directly without any buffer. Eunuch Mu stepped forward and looked at his wet clothes. He hesitated for a moment and covered him with a thin quilt, but he didn't dare to change his clothes. There was once a similar situation. Before his hand reached out to his master's collar, he was kicked away. That kick almost killed him. Thinking about it now, he still felt the pain. Since then, he didn't dare to act rashly. Fortunately, his master didn't punish him for his poor service after he woke up. He murmured. It seemed that he was really drunk. Hearing this, Eunuch Mu quietly retreated and gently cleaned up the spilled wine and the broken wine jars outside. It was really a sin to let those monks clean up and smell the wine. Master had harmed enough people. It was better to let go of these monks who had lived in peace. Master Liaochen finished his work and returned. He stood by the window in the corridor and looked at the sleeping Li Hongyuan. He put his palms together and said, Amitba. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652950. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Gur mobile reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 70. Li Hongyuan didn't sleep for too long. He woke up in less than 2 hours, but his body was wet and smelled of alcohol. He didn't feel very good. He quickly took off his clothes. Eunuch Mu, who was very considerate, asked someone to bring in the bathtub at the right time. The temperature of the bathtub was neither too hot nor too cold. It was just right. After cleaning up, it was already an hour later. Naturally, it was already past lunchtime. However, even if the monks in the monastery were strict with themselves and did not eat past lunchtime, who was Li Hongyuan? If anyone was hungry, he would also be hungry. Not to mention missing lunchtime, even if it was in the middle of the night, they would still think of ways to feed him until he was full. Considering that he was sober and couldn't eat greasy food, they didn't need to waste time to prepare food for him outside. They could directly use the kitchen in the temple. Seeing that they were almost done, Eunuch Mu asked the kitchen to start a fire to cook. When he sat down, the hot vegetarian dishes that looked and smelled good were just on the table. Li Hongyuan had a small bowl of clear soup next to his hand, but it emitted a faint fragrance. What is it? It's the hangover soup specially made for Prince according to the abbot's recipe, said the grey-robed monk who delivered the food. Should I say that he's worthy of being called Master Liaochen? He even knows about this kind of thing, said Li Hongyuan sarcastically. The monk didn't refute. After setting the food, he bowed and left. Li Hongyuan naturally ate a lot of vegetarian dishes in White Dragon Temple. In fact, compared to meat dishes, he preferred light dishes. Now, these dishes were just to his taste. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Li Hongyuan went to the back mountain peach forest to digest the food. Eunuch Mu stood far away from the peach forest. At this time, he was naturally an idiot who didn't know what to do. However, these exceptionally beautiful peach blossoms would probably be destroyed after Miss Luo left. Previously, he had been wondering if his master was not preparing to make peach blossom wine this year. Only after these 2 days did he realize that his master had probably planned to let Miss Luo have a good time before picking flowers to make the wine when he found out that Miss Luo had entered the capital. Li Hongyuan plucked a peach blossom and pulled at the petals in boredom. However, for a man with impeccable looks like him, doing this kind of thing was also pleasing to the eye. After all, under another peach tree not far away, there was someone who was mesmerized by him. After Li Hongyuan finished plucking the peach blossom in his hand, he turned his head to look at her. Even though the other party was a first-class beauty, his expression was still cold, and he was even more displeased at being disturbed. Eunuch Mu had also noticed the woman. He cursed inwardly. How could he have let someone else in due to a moment of carelessness? No, the other party should have been inside for a long time. When Jin Qinhuang arrived at Bai Long Temple, although he didn't completely clear the area, he was still of noble status. Fearing that someone would bump into him, he would still clear a small area wherever he went. Although this peach forest was very large, because the common people knew that noble people often appeared, once the area was cleared, they would consciously leave. Otherwise, if something happened, it might implicate the entire family. But now that this person had been bumped into by Li Hongyuan, it could only mean one thing. She deliberately avoided him. Especially after seeing the other party's appearance, Eunuch Mu was certain of his conjecture. Thinking about it, Eunuch Mu did not step forward. It was only because this woman's status was noble and his master's attitude towards her was quite ambiguous. The reason why he said this was because every time his master met this woman, although he still had the attitude of facing a woman who was not interested, he was still milder than other noble ladies. If he didn't know that his master had deep feelings for Miss Luo, Eunuch Mu would have thought that his master had taken a fancy to her. This woman's surname was Ruan. Her maiden name was Fengfei. She was the youngest daughter of the Prime Minister of the Cabinet, Ruan Ruizhong. It must be known that Ruan Ruizhong was even older than Luo Peishan. It could be imagined that this was a proper birth of a daughter at an old age. Of course, because she was born from a second wife, it didn't cause any commotion. If a woman in her 50s gave birth to a pearl, it would be truly strange. After all, in the inner courtyards of high families, women over 40 basically no longer share a room with their husbands. If people found out, they would probably be said to be old, shameless, and jealous. Ruan Fengfei saw that Li Hongyuan was looking at her. The infatuation in her eyes disappeared. She didn't avoid him but leisurely stepped forward. This subject's daughter greets Wang Ye. Long live Wang Ye. Her eyes were like autumn water, full of tenderness that was about to overflow. In the morning, when concubine Li approached Li Hongyuan, how did he describe it? Of course, Ruan Fengfei was still a woman of the boudoir and naturally couldn't be said to be having an affair. However, in the eyes of Li Hongyuan, a man who couldn't tolerate a second woman, it was a different approach to achieve the same result. Ruan Fengfei admired Li Hongyuan. Not many people knew about this matter, but it definitely wasn't a small number. Especially in private, when she saw Li Hongyuan, she never concealed it. The woman who was usually like water was bold and passionate in front of him. She even said that she hoped that Li Hongyuan would marry her after she reached marriageable age. In the capital, Ruan Fengfei was a young lady who was as famous as Sun Yijia. It could be imagined that her talent and appearance were definitely of the highest quality. However, Sun Yijia was a cold and reserved woman, while Ruan Fengfei was more towards the gentle and charming side. At the same time, the two were the same age, but Ruan Fengfei was younger by 2 months. "Why are you here?" Li Hongyuan asked in a light voice. This subject's daughter knew that Wang Ye came to White Dragon Temple, so I followed. Ruan Fengfei stared at him without hiding anything. "Ben Wang is asking why you are alone in the peach blossom forest." Ruan Fengfei smiled softly. "Naturally, it's because it's easier to hide from the monks of the temple if I'm alone." Her eyes flashed with craftiness and a little pride. "Is Wang Ye concerned about this subject's daughter?" This subject's daughter knows that Wang Ye treats this subject's daughter differently from others. Li Hongyuan really wanted to ask, "Where did you come up with such a conclusion?" When Ruan Fengfei was 7 or 8 years old, when she first met Li Hongyuan in the palace, she said that she wanted to marry him when she grew up. At that time, because she was still young, the elders made fun of her. Everyone else took it as a joke, but only Ruan Fengfei remembered it. As Li Hongyuan grew older, his reputation became worse and worse. The other noble ladies all avoided him, but she kept coming forward, trying to get close to him again and again. No matter how many things she heard about him, she never retreated. Last year, after Ruan Fengfei's hairpin ceremony, she asked Li Hongyuan again when he would marry her. Li Hongyuan was expressionless, saying that Ben Wang was not interested in her. Ruan Fengfei acted as if she didn't hear anything. She said that she didn't mind his bad temper, that she didn't mind him being a playboy. If he took a fancy to any beauty, no matter if it was a man or a woman, she was willing to help him get it. With her as a cover, he didn't even need to wrong himself to hug those women of low status. If he wanted the throne, she would also persuade her father, as long as he was willing to marry her. When she said this, she didn't beg in a humble manner, and didn't even have much emotional fluctuation. She just calmly stated a fact, the benefits he could get by marrying her. Some insiders felt that she was bold and even shameless, but at the same time, they felt that she was too lowly. Burying herself in the mud like this, even if she got what she wanted, what good would it be? However, Ruan Fengfei didn't feel that she was lowly, and neither did Li Hongyuan. In his eyes, she was a very strange person. Her thoughts seemed to be centered around Li Hongyuan, but because he wasn't affected by her at all, he didn't have the mentality of being blinded by the situation. He could see very clearly that Ruan Fengfei was really the most selfish person. However, the clothes that clearly did not belong to her age, she firmly controlled them. Even the most picky noblewoman in the capital would not be able to find the slightest flaw on her. Seeing his sizing up gaze, Ruan Fengfei generously spread out her arms and twirled in front of him. Does it look good? Under the fluttering peach blossom petals, it was indeed exceptionally beautiful. However, Li Hongyuan, who was used to seeing beauties, was like a blind man at this moment, not seeing anything. If it wasn't for the fact that she still had some value, Li Hongyuan's patience with her would have already run out. It was actually very easy to ruin her. As long as he made public her words and deeds in front of him, Ruan Fengfei would be completely finished without even polishing it. Perhaps it was because of this patience that Ruan Fengfei always felt that Li Hongyuan had her in his heart. They would get married sooner or later, although her father did not agree with her marrying him, saying that he was not her ideal man. It didn't matter. She could slowly persuade her father. If 1 year was not enough, 2 years. If 2 years were not enough, 3 years. If 3 years were not enough, 10 years. She never thought that she would be old. Anyway, she would marry him in the end. He would always wait for her, wouldn't he? As for the ideal man, as long as she got what she wanted, what did it have to do with whether he was her ideal man or not? Sometimes, Ruan Fengfei couldn't help but wonder. You can leave now. Leave White Dragon Temple. I'll take my leave. Although reluctant, Ruan Fengfei did not disobey him. After leaving the peach blossom forest, she found her maid and walked further and further away. She returned to the place where she stayed before. Because she came in a hurry, her daily necessities were still on the way. She decisively got on the carriage and left White Dragon Temple. Eunuch Mu couldn't guess his master's mood now, so he didn't dare to go forward rashly. Li Hongyuan stood in the same place. He didn't know how long he had been standing there. Suddenly, he felt a little palpitating and reached out to cover his chest. What was going on? Since he came back, Li Hongyuan had been paying attention to his physical condition. He was very sure that his body was healthy without any disease or pain. Those who are affected by it are also connected to the heart. Li Hongyuan's face changed slightly, and he immediately turned around and left the peach blossom forest. Mu-en, send a pigeon to ask if something happened to Wan Wan. Eunuch Mu was stunned, but he didn't dare to neglect it. At this time, Miss Luo was the most important. His master had to be put aside. He turned around and rushed to the small courtyard where he lived temporarily regardless of his image. Not sure if something really happened to Jing Wan, Li Hongyuan's face was gloomy. Because of his anxiety, he even arrived at the small courtyard 1 step ahead of Eunuch Mu. Although he was good at martial arts, his hair was still a little messy when he walked so fast, which had never happened to him before. Seeing that his master had passed him and walked ahead, Eunuch Mu could only speed up. It should be known that none of the maids around Li Hongyuan were weak. Even so, when Eunuch Mu rushed back, his face was pale and he was gasping for breath. Li Hongyuan had already prepared the writing brush and ink for himself. Seeing Eunuch Mu, he said, "Useless thing." Eunuch Mu couldn't help turning paler. His master never used useless things, but he didn't even dare to plead for mercy. He just tried his best to calm down and then went forward to serve the writing brush and ink, hoping to escape this time. Li Hongyuan wrote so fast that he didn't even care that the letter might fall into the hands of others. But fortunately, his handwriting was not like this. Compared with the fierce style of his writing now, what he wrote to outsiders could only be regarded as mediocre. Just as he finished writing and rolled it up, an who was dressed as a guard, hurried in from outside. "Master, Miss Luo fell off the cliff halfway up the mountain." Bang, with a loud noise, Li Hongyuan smashed the table. In a flash, he had already arrived in front of an and grabbed his neck. "Speak clearly." An felt suffocated, not only because his neck was grabbed, but also because of Li Hongyuan's eyes that could devour people. "Moss Master." Li Hongyuan threw him away. "Let's go." Forcibly suppressing his choking cough, he hurriedly followed Li Hongyuan's pace and spoke in detail while walking. "I don't know why, but Miss Luo, who originally planned to come to White Dragon Temple tomorrow, came to White Dragon Temple today." Elder Ruan's youngest legitimate daughter was riding a carriage down the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, a wild beast suddenly rushed out of the forest beside the road, startling the horse and causing it to lose control for a moment. Miss Luo and the others just happened to go up the mountain. The two sides collided, and the horses on that side were also startled. It happened to be the section near the cliff, and several carriages fell off the cliff together. Yi paused. Wu Anho's heir and his wife were also traveling with Miss Luo. Li Hongyuan's footsteps paused. "Who are you talking about? Fu Yunting?" Yi couldn't help but take a step back. His master's expression was as if he wanted to eat Wu Anho's heir alive. His master's attitude towards Wu Anho's heir had always been bad, but no one knew the reason. Now it seemed that it was related to the future princess? Otherwise, why would his reaction be so big? Perhaps he was stung by Fu Yunting's appearance, but Li Hongyuan actually calmed down a bit. He rubbed between his eyebrows, making his chaotic thoughts a bit clearer. Secretly assist the monks in the temple in saving people. Investigate why Wan came early and didn't send a message to Ben Wang, as well as whether the startling of the horse was an accident or man-made. Also, carry out the arrangements right now. In order to formally meet with Jing Wan, Li Hongyuan painstakingly prepared a scheme of injuring himself to gain the enemy's confidence. He also put on a big play for those people in the capital to muddy the waters even more. "Master, forgive this subordinate for speaking bluntly, but isn't it not too good to do this now? What if Miss Luo is seriously injured? Everything would be in vain. You'd better all beg for her to be unscathed." Li Hongyuan's starry eyes grew darker, brewing a madness that could swallow everything. Yi originally wanted to say, "What if Miss Luo dies?" He was only glad that he changed his mind when the words reached his mouth. Otherwise, he was afraid that his blood would splatter on the spot. Still not scramming. A true scheme of injuring oneself to gain the enemy's confidence wasn't a self-directed act. It was carefully arranged so that others would act according to your wishes. Although White Dragon Temple was a temple and even had Great Master Liaochen overseeing it, as long as the word imperial was involved, there was no way it was clean. As long as it wasn't too excessive, such as killing or obscenity, Great Master Liaochen would turn a blind eye to it. In less than a quarter of an hour, an assassination was carried out in broad daylight. The layout was fast and the actions were swift. It was clear that White Dragon Temple also had people working for Li Hongyuan. In order to achieve the best results, Li Hongyuan didn't have too many people around him. However, because it was necessary to make the other party's people stay, every one of them was a ruthless character. Once the fight started, Li Hongyuan used all his strength. In addition, Jingwan's life or death was unknown. Suppressing his anxiety turned into a bloodthirsty desire. He pursued speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness. Not only was he ruthless to the enemy, he was also ruthless to himself. As long as it wasn't a fatal injury, he could even exchange injury for injury. The masked assassins of the fake monk then realized that there was a mistake. This Jin Qinhuang wasn't just an empty shell, he was clearly that wolf, owl, and lion. Retreat. Unfortunately, it was already too late. They had already been led to a place arranged in advance. Because of the terrain, it wasn't easy to retreat. Even if they retreated, they would certainly be caught. Rather than being caught, it was better to commit suicide than to be caught. Since there was no way to retreat, they could only fight to the end. Killing Jin Qinhuang was the only way to survive. As they fought and retreated, Li Hongyuan's clothes were almost soaked in blood. Some of it was his own, some of it was the enemy's. From the looks of it, he was becoming more and more exhausted, but his posture was nimble from beginning to end, without the slightest bit of weakness or surrender. The assassins trembled with fear. Their master still had such a terrifying opponent in the dark. They didn't know how many hidden losses he would suffer. Not to mention them, even Li Hongyuan's people were frightened by him. Although it wasn't that they hadn't seen their master's ruthless appearance, but those people were just trapped beasts without any leeway to resist. That was how he wanted to torment them. But now, it was a real life and death struggle. However, it didn't seem like their master was facing this kind of thing for the first time. Having good martial arts was one thing, fighting to the death was another. His hands were not soft, he didn't fear the blade, his reactions were agile, all of which showed that he had experienced hundreds of battles. The assassins originally had a lot of advantages in terms of numbers. Before they started, they felt that they had a 90% chance of success. At this moment, their manpower was sharply reduced again and again. However, Jin Qinhuang's side was also an arrow at the end of its flight. There were only 2 people left at his side. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Gritting their teeth, they prepared for the final battle. Although the trick of injuring oneself to gain the enemy's confidence may have been an impromptu idea, this assassination had been prepared long ago. It only needed an opportunity. Li Hongyuan naturally couldn't really throw his own life away. At the critical moment, Li Hongyuan saw his bodyguards and several martial monks coming over. Li Hongyuan backhanded his blade. Because it was too tricky, the assassin couldn't block it. On the verge of death, Li Hongyuan burst out with his last remaining strength. He was originally at the edge of the slope. Seeing that his goal had been achieved, he took the opportunity to roll down. Wang Ye. The bodyguards rushed forward and saw this kind of scene. For a moment, their hearts jumped to their throats. The bodyguard who rushed to the front, without saying a word, cleanly disposed of the masked assassin who had one last breath left. Another bodyguard next to him grabbed him, "Leave him alive." But it was a pity that it was already too late. I saw Wang Ye roll down. In a moment of panic my eyes turned red, so Enough, and he coldly shouted. He was the head of the shadow guards and also the head of the bodyguards. It is more important to find Wang Ye first. If something happens to Wang Ye, needless to say, the others also knew that they were unable to protect their master. Even if Wang Ye didn't die, they absolutely wouldn't have a good end. However, if Wang Ye was still alive, they might still have a chance to live. Not daring to be negligent, they hurriedly followed the place where Li Hongyuan rolled down. An Yi checked the 2 brothers who followed Li Hongyuan. Although they were seriously injured, fortunately, their lives weren't in danger. They were just exhausted. He handed them over to the monks and also followed them down. After checking, the situation wasn't very good. Although it was a slope, it was also very steep. Perhaps it was because Li Hongyuan was unlucky. There were clearly trees next to him, but he just had to slide down along the lush weeds. The bloodstains were very obvious. Below, there was a river, but the height was at least more than 300 feet. This situation made the bodyguards' faces pale. "Boss, what should we do?" https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6652951. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, registration free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.